Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Right on. Great. Thanks for being here today. This is our second developer meetup here at the FCC. We did one about a year ago, and we focused on accessibility and new technologies. And we thought we'd take a different approach this morning. The approach today is really much more of an organic nature. We really wanted to hit the meetup style. We know that so much is going on in the .gov space for developer resources. We really wanted to give everyone who's pushing out those kinds of resources the opportunity to just come and share. So come tell your story. This is what we're doing. These are some of our challenges, some opportunities. But before we begin, I kind of want to do a few things, a little bit of house cleaning. My name is Mike Byrne. I'm the Geographic Information Officer here. And the primary language I write in is Python. So I wouldn't call myself a whole-scale developer, but I do write code. So the fun thing about working here at the FCC is we have a lot of that. We have a mix of people who are doing policy and development work. We have lawyers who write code. We have people who write code that help in policy. So it's a really good mix and flavor. In terms of logistics for the day, there are some great things that we need to take a step back and recognize. Three in particular, I wanted to recognize the FCC developers. So if there are any developers in the room, whether you're an FTE or a contractor from the FCC, could you stand up real quick? These are people. I know there's some guys back there. There's a couple over here. There's some in the back. These are people here at the FCC that are making a whole bunch of our stuff work. It's because of their tireless dedication to thinking about code, thinking about openness and transparency that really helps us get where we're going. Number two, if you registered for the event, you got an email, spoke with, heard from, received something from Antoine and Brittany. Those two back there, they're ready to kill me because of the organic nature that we were really after for this event. Really wanted the idea of openness and transparency, but really just sharing. So I know that they work tirelessly. It's really because of them. And lastly, we can't have events like this, the FCC, if we didn't really have high-level buy-in. Everyone from our CIO and managing director all the way to the chairman's office really thinks this is a great idea. So Mr. Robbins, I don't think is in the room, but our CIO, Mr. Naylor, is. These people believe in what we're doing, and we're thankful. Without them, we wouldn't be here today. So some basic logistics. We're going to have food come around lunchtime. There's a room just down the hall on the left. Where we actually had a developer room for some time. We're going to have some pizza there. That'll be great. We're doing this back-to-back-to-back meetup style. So there'll be 17 or so Ignite presentations. We're not going to break. If you see something you like, you should go meet that person, introduce yourself, and say, hey, tell me more about your stuff, or I have a good idea for you. The whole notion of today is sharing, feeling what we're doing, understanding that we're doing cool stuff, and we want to add to that. In terms of total time, we have an agenda that went around. We're going to try and keep to that schedule as much as we can. We want to keep our talks to about 10 minutes. You can see with 17, we're already pushing well into the afternoon. If you need to take a break, you're free to use the facilities down the hall and food. And I think we have water down the hall as well. In terms of agenda, first up, we have a video from the chairman who couldn't be with us today, so he's made a quick announcement. We're going to see that. The federal government CIO, Steve Van Roekel, is going to give some opening remarks. And then we're going to go right into Ignites, and we want these to be fast, lively, people get to talk, and then feel free to engage them in the back of the room in the hallway afterwards when you see something you like or have comments. So again, we really want an organic style event. We want people to have dialogue. So I think first up is our video from the chairman, and we'll get that rolling.
Good morning, developers. Good morning, agency leaders and others. Welcome. Thank you for coming to the second FCC.gov Developer Meetup. You represent the right trend and in many ways the cutting edge in government data, finding new and novel ways to deliver greater transparency and greater openness. At the FCC, our mission is to unleash the opportunities of broadband, wired and wireless broadband, for all Americans. As we said in the National Broadband Plan, broadband can change the way government serves the public, improving government performance and spurring innovation. And it can change the way citizens engage with their government, increasing access to information and revolutionizing the way people interact with each other. The FCC strives to be a model of excellence in government on this front and many others. We have led the way on data visualization when it comes to maps, using maps to make complex data sets fun and easy to understand for non-experts. And when it comes to open data, the FCC uses data services without API keys, building our apps off the same APIs the public sees, also known as eating our own dog food. We are also excited to give back to the community by publishing open code. We have now open sourced 2 of our website modules, which have been used by over 60 other agencies, thus reducing the cost for other government agencies to publish better web tools. Our aim is to be a model of excellence in government. It's also why we're hosting this event today. I'm so pleased that so many of you from the developer community and over 13 federal agencies are here to participate. I hope this event will help you collaborate, share ideas, come up with new ones. Thank you again for being here and for your hard work and dedication to more open data. Thank you very much.
So again, it's great to see from my perspective real executive buy-in, and I appreciate the chairman taking the time to make that great video. Next up is the Chief Information Officer for the U.S., Steve Van Rokel, and I know that this is a near and dear issue to Steve's heart, particularly because of the last twit pic that I saw from him, his opening of his first Commodore 64s. Thanks, Steve.
Also near and dear being back here at the FCC. I was the managing director here from the beginning of this administration till last summer when I left to go to USAID for a couple months and then off to the White House for this job. I actually, as Mike sort of alluded to, I started as a developer. In 8th grade, I wrote my first commercial application in 8th grade on an Apple IIe for a local business in my small hometown in northwest Iowa. And one of the things I had to do during that time was I wrote an app to do name parsing. It'd look for a space in someone's name, usually starting at the right, working your way left. And with my last name being Van Space Rokel, the app would always break on my last name. There were plenty of Mary Anns and others in my class with first name split, so I always started with last name. I was the one anomaly, and so I took the space out of my last name, and of course the app worked. And then this is how geeky I am. When I was married, I actually legally changed my name to remove the space. So generations coming after me will be named for a debug of a basic program. I also was a developer in college, and I did a lot of work there to study. I found myself in college kind of at that crazy inflection point where we were kind of leaving mainframes behind and moving into object-oriented programming and other things that are now the precursor to web services and everything. Professors at that time were still teaching the punch card languages. So I was learning COBOL and Pascal and Fortran and all these sort of things. And little did I know that those would come in so useful returning back to the world of programming when I joined the federal government that is still running COBOL and Fortran and other things. So if you're an aspiring developer and want to get a job as a COBOL programmer, we still have places for you. But that's all changing. It's all changing because of people like you being here, igniting and inspiring a new wave of thinking about the way we handle and manage government IT and the way we deliver applications and services in the model that is the federal government. My big agenda that I'm doing in the job, having been federal CIO for the past 9 months, is really around innovate with less. And on the less side, it's going out and finding savings, finding places that we can cut back and we can drive efficiencies into the system, shift to cloud computing, data center consolidation, doing things differently on procurement and other things are giving us investment capital that we can then pour back into IT generally and to innovation and to fund things that we need to fund. This era that we're in now is one where IT budgets aren't climbing. Since 2009, we flattened what was about a 7% growth line on IT spending in the federal government. But I would contend we've innovated more in the last 3 years than we did in the prior 15 on that 7% growth. We've actually had negative 0.004% growth in federal IT spending in the last 3 years. So we've got a big opportunity to kind of use that as a forcing function to drive new behavior, to find new ways of delivering things. And I think at the end of the day, in the area in which you all live and think about from a developer standpoint, the innovate side of Innovate with Less really means how do we transform government and create government as a platform by which we will deliver new things and deliver new capabilities. And I think the kind of key tenets of that are, one is embracing just 21st century methodology and mechanisms to deliver solutions. Thinking about our productivity gap that we have in government, how do we drive new efficiencies into the way that our employees do work? If any of you have fired up a device in this room, you'll see that there's a Wi-Fi connection in here, a public Wi-Fi connection for those people that are outside the commission to utilize. I mean, it's a small example of something we can drive. Collaboration software, common spaces to do things, telework, all this kind of contributes to a 21st century workforce. The opportunity to seize on the mobile revolution, the consumerization of technology in government, I think is a huge opportunity for us. Not only our ability to just use technology in new ways, but also to seize on the opportunity to shift the paradigm in the way we deliver applications and services to both Americans and to citizens inside government. So we've employees inside government. So we have a real opportunity to kind of do things in a more cohesive whole across. We also should think a lot about the application delivery model in government. For so long, the solution in government has been when faced with a problem that can be solved with software. We do a big spec. We take that to our procurement team. We often take it up to the Hill and get approval to build, the next great 5-year, $50 million project. And certainly, that you have great vision and great direction there. You define probably, hire a vendor, define a waterfall process by which to deliver that solution. And year one, you're gung-ho. You're getting stuff going. You're writing specs. You're doing all this stuff. Year two, the expectation of funding maybe falls through, where Congress doesn't allocate you funding that you thought you were going to get, or someone on the leadership team spins out and leaves your effort, or laws underlying the effort you were doing change, or something fundamental just evolves around the process you're trying to drive. And what ends up happening is these 5-year, $50 million projects become 10-year, $100 million projects because they spread out and they move and they evolve. And by the end of it, we have so many examples of those solutions just being thrown out in favor of just starting from scratch because it's cheaper to do so at the end of the day, because the technology is outdated or laws have changed to the point of just needing to do that. And so we have a huge opportunity to bring, agile and modular development into government in a way that delivers these solutions in a much different way, taking those big solutions and breaking them down into the components by which we can deliver services. And you'll see some stuff from me very soon, kind of more broadly on this, on kind of setting policy and direction for government, but kind of the key tenets of thinking about all these things, the mobile revolution, 21st century government, and thinking about kind of this mission delivery solutions and services that we do, really kind of rests on three things, and all of them are related to you as developers and the effort you bring to government. First is thinking about being digital by default. Change the paradigm in government where we just are digital by default. And I mean digital by default from the standpoint of even going so far as talking to Congress about when we create a law that asks for the collection of data, for example, that we put some language in that law that says that data should be machine readable. And we start to get that built into the system from the outset, from the inception of law, extended into everything we do. And we think about digital by default in everything that we do inside our agencies and other places. The second is that open data and machine readable just needs to be the new normal in government. Just maniacally going out, eliminating paper processes, and getting into a standardized way of thinking about data. Now, can we as a government come up with the one schema to rule them all around data? Probably not. And so I think there's also a level at which we need to think in a metadata layer. And so as you guys are talking today and kind of thinking about what you do, I would love some thinking, brought to me around kind of that metadata extraction of data and services within the government that we do. And so So think about open data and the solutions you're delivering, how you get that, and how do we think about kind of a metadata standard across government to describe our data. And then the next layer is, of course, the platform layer. Thinking about web services to access everything that you do on the back end. Think about standardizing and building reusability as a normal going forward methodology into delivering solutions inside your agencies and doing that across the board. And then the last part is really about the presentation layer. Think hard about how to decouple presentation from its underlying data. For too long and for too much of what we do in government, we've tightly coupled those things together, where presentation of the data and the data itself are so tightly wound together that you can't find data, you can't relate it, you can't mash it up, you can't do other things with it. Instead, think about a strategy that really starts with the open data, builds a delivery platform through reusable web services, and then presentation is sort of a complementary effort on top, but done in a way that allows developers to access your data in real time, as well as let you present it and do it in different ways. I mean, the beauty of government will be someday when no citizen has to visit a government website, that they can just go to their favorite, vendor, they can go to their favorite community service page, they can go to somewhere, their favorite app, and government data is just underlying that solution. I mean, we see that the probably most relevant example of that is weather. Weather is probably the place, as a federal government, we've innovated the most. I think about Mike's efforts to launch broadbandmap.gov and do that with these fundamentals of open data. Think about the platform, think about presentation in a way that I would expect that in the coming years, real estate websites in this country start publishing the broadband capabilities of a house or a rental you're looking for. And I don't have to visit a government website to do that, because like many of you probably care more about broadband capabilities in the place you're living than you care about the roof composition or the numbers of cars that fit in the garage, or really maybe even bathrooms for some of you. I don't know. But think about that think about government providing that service. And then the last component is sort of challenging ourselves as government employees to think about delivery and kind of closing the gap that we have in delivering service to Americans, both American businesses and citizens alike. I think the future for us holds a reality that is, instead of the federal government setting up field offices in every city for every agency represented and having 20 or 30 of them in some major metropolitan areas, that carrying a device like this around is having every federal field office with me at all times. And so think about that kind of digitization of services and being able to bring that forward on a mobile device or other things as you go forward. So I am delighted that you're all here. I'm delighted that this effort is happening, that you're all coming together. We started these fundamentals and did a lot of this at the FCC, talking about open data platform and thinking about a new paradigm for a presentation model here. So I encourage you to talk to a lot of the team that's here in the room today and kind of start to drive this inside your agencies as we go forward. I think we're going to really change the way work is done and the way the federal government really delivers these solutions. So do great things coming out of this, and thank you.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Steve. One quick bit before we begin. Brittany Stevenson is going to come up and give us a last bit of logistics, and we're going to dive into our Ignites. I passed out the agenda. We're going to try and have transportation and education first, although we might have had a slight problem with our presentation. So, Brittany.
Good morning, everyone. As Mike said, I'm Brittany Stevenson, and I'm the new media associate here at the Federal Communications Commission. I wanted to let you guys know that today we will be using the hashtag FCC Dev Day, so it's really important to let other agencies know and let people know that you're here and we're having this great event. Also, the event is currently being streamed at fcc.gov/live. And we also want to encourage everyone to join our FCC/developers listserv so we can get information to you about other things that we're doing in this open data, open government space. So if you would please just tweet away. I'll be live tweeting this event. I hope that you guys will as well. And thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, so in full organic style, we're probably going to mix up the agenda a bit. I need to go find transportation's presentation, sorry about, unless you guys want to go first. Are you sure? Yeah. All right. Can we get online on this box? Or not. Excellent. So it looks like first up is going to be transportation, and we're going to try and get them online. And again, apologize for the delay. And excellent. Yeah. First up, Department of Transportation.
Hi, and good morning. My name is Joe Strang, and I'm the Chief Safety Officer for the Federal Railroad Administration during my day job. But my second job was to be the community organizer, if you will, to create the safety community on data.gov. So we are very thrilled that we actually have it. We went live on Friday, so we were totally excited about it. We have over 600 data sets. We have some challenges that I'm glad there are developers in the room because we want to talk about some of those with the safer bus. And my colleague with me is Dan Morgan, who actually, as I put it, I provided leadership. He actually did the work. So I'm going to turn it over to Dan.
So good morning. I'm Dan Morgan. Joe and I built a thing. The safety community on data.gov is one of the National Action Plan communities in the President's National Action Plan on Open Government. If you want to hit the data tab, and I'll just dance for a little bit.
Well, we have to wait while the internet considers our request.
Yes, exactly. So we've categorized mostly transportation data at this time, but it's got compliance and enforcement data, which is what powers DOT's brand new Safer Bus app. I'm sure many of you know about the Chinatown buses or the intercity buses that run around, and they've had some safety issues. To build Safer Bus, we actually built our very first API in the department. And that the mobile app actually has more up-to-date information than our website, which is pretty cool. So we're slowly developing APIs to deliver safety information into the hands of consumers because there's a market failure. People are making decisions based on cost and not at all considering safety. So we saw publishing our data in an open format and putting it in a mobile app as a big opportunity. As safetydata.gov grows, we're hoping to incorporate information from places like the National Institute of Justice. We're looking at occupational safety. And what we're hoping to do is let's take something like Safer Bus. Right now the department only has records on the carriers themselves. We're hoping that we can incorporate crime data based on routes, and then we can figure out how to mash up not only where you're trying to go and whether the bus is safe, but when you get there, is the station safe? So that when you roll into New York at 11 o'clock at night and you have a choice of where you're getting dropped off, maybe you'll make a different choice based on where that bus operates. All of that requires us to do a lot of different things with our data. What you'll find on safetydata.gov today is a lot of bulk data. And what we need from developers like you is an understanding of what we need to do, or all these agencies that are starting to do in releasing this data, is an idea of what we can do to make it more useful for you. You'll find various different geographic scales. There's going to be a lot of translating that you're going to have to do. You're going to find different corporate identifiers. So there's going to be a lot of harmonizing that we're going to need help doing. So it's not going to be easy to use all of this stuff, but the reason we put it out there was for you guys to tell us what you want to do and how we can make it better. So there are forums, there's blogs, there's Twitter, whatever you want to do to let us know how to make this community and its data more useful to you, the better. We also have a lot of resources on the apps page. There's some examples of apps already. Gwen will know most of these. But there's the recalls.gov app and Safer Bus. One of the child safety seat inspection station locator which I'm sure everybody knows about, is a website that is managed by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. And apparently, and I didn't know this before I started doing this, apparently people frequently do not install safety seats correctly. And we have a website that tells you where you can get your installation inspected, but you'll have to know that we actually have such a website, Google it, find it, and then know how to use it. So we've wrappered that. I actually built that with somebody at Transportation Camp, February 2011 in New York. We built it in a weekend. It wrappers that website that we have from NHTSA, grabs your GPS location on the phone, and returns the nearest police stations that offer inspection services. So now we don't have to worry about trying to get people to know which website and what services they need to do. And then, of course, the National Library of Medicine has this really cool app for first responders called Wiser, which if you have a hazmat explosion or some other sort of incident and you don't know what was in that tank and you don't know how to evacuate the area, there's a mobile app that you can use, and you can put in your weather information for how the wind is blowing, and it'll tell you how far away you need to evacuate people at what radius and in what direction. It's pretty cool. I didn't know that happened either. So there's all sorts of apps out there that are already powered by open data, and we want to see more, and what we need is your feedback on how to make it better.
Thanks, Dan. And in closing, the other thing that we're doing that's cool is incorporating data from other sources. So we were going to have information from the city of Chicago, city of San Francisco, we hope, and the state of Maryland as starters. We also already have some data from North Carolina, so it won't just be federal data. We'll also have state and local data. And why does that matter a lot? Usually a lot of crime information is best collected at the local level, and we're very interested in seeing what we can learn about transportation safety, transportation choices, and crime information, because we think that will tell us a lot about what kinds of improvements we need to make in order to make transportation safer. So anybody have any questions on anything?
You've got time, right?
Yeah.
We've got 3 minutes.
3 minutes. So I mean, this is a good. I mean, the whole. I'll get for the mic.
There you go.
The whole event today, we really have billed 10 minutes per. So these guys did stuff super fast. So there's 3 minutes. So questions, engagements for them is helpful.
Yes.
Structuring of data you already have, or new data sets to collect, or suggestions for inclusions of additional fields in existing data sets? So what are you looking for specifically, and how do people get that to you?
All of the above. Anything we can do to make the site more useful for people, we're interested in. We have a lot of data sets that, the point on making everything digital is very relevant for us, because we have a lot that are PDF files that actually have data tables that would be much better. And we're aware of some of them, but if there are others out there that we need to make digital, would like to know that, because that'll help us as a department, speaking for transportation and government-wide, we want to go digital. So, and there are a lot of things that are, in PDF formats that are not all that useful, even though they may have tabular information. So.
And I could add a little bit to that too. I think, one of the things is when we release data as a government, we frequently don't consider its alternative uses. And so we forget to include linking fields or master data that would be helpful to a developer, because we're just releasing our table, and it's cool. So I think we do need that feedback for how to release better in a consumer-oriented way.
My question was about your comment about being an organizer at night. How do you devote enough resources to organizing with developers and reaching out to them? And do you have any tips for people who are just getting started?
So at Department of Transportation, because this was a presidential mandatory directive, DOT took the lead, and my deputy secretary pulled me out of my day job to go do this almost full-time for about 4 months. And I think having that type of support from your, this is a deputy secretary of the Department of Transportation deciding that this is a priority. And without that, it would have been much more difficult. But I have to say, safety professionals throughout government are wonderful, because everybody I called And, I literally picked up the phone and said, hey, we're creating the safety community. Do you want to join us? Do you have any data? And everybody was like, yes, that's fantastic. We want to. Help us. And, so we did. And we're still continuing that effort. So every Friday at 10:30, I have a federal partners call, and we're just adding to the federal partners. So if you have any safety data that you want to share, let me know. We'd be happy to add you to the list because we're still growing. We've got a lot of data sets coming over to us from Department of Labor that we'll have soon, actually. And we've got data from Health and Human Services, CDC, NIOSH. So, anybody in the safety community, we've even got Department of Education has campus crime information that they're sharing with us. So it's something we're just trying to keep building. So let me know if there's interest. And now I only have 15 seconds left. Anybody else? Okay, I'll yield it up. Thank you.
Jason, do you need some more time? So if we could switch energy and census, is census ready to come up? We've got their presentation loaded, I think. Excellent. Let's give them the... Yep, we've got it. Yep. Excellent. And then this is just a simple forward back. And we'll reset the clock for you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Going? Okay. Hi, I'm Joe Gilvari from the Census Bureau. And I want to thank Mike and Gray and everybody who's here pulling this together. This is a great opportunity to meet people and get some insights into what we're all doing, lessons learned and things like that. I may be the first person, and hope I won't be the last one, to come up here and talk about what we want to do, because at present we do not have an API, we do not have a mobile application of our own out there to show. We have been working on producing some sort of APIs for the Census Bureau data sets, and there are probably 3 or 4 different efforts going on internally. The largest one will be for the decennial data and the American Community Surveys data that is nearly done. A lot of the technical issues have been worked out. We're working through more not politics per se, but process. This is unfamiliar territory for people. It's new for some developers, but it's new for some operational managers. It's new for people who own the data sets and think they know what their customers want, and they're convinced they want to see some new version of tables, not so much something where they've got to hire someone to write an application for them, things like that. So we're pushing through the processes and a little bit of culture change to get this out. But our geography division has exposed some ArcGIS functionality through the TigerWeb system. That's online now. The URL is there. Will the presentations be available for each of us? Okay, so when you get the presentation from Census, you'll have the URL for it. We had talked, I personally had talked with Mike and Gray and a couple other people about the possibility that the initial Census Bureau mobile applications would use their FCC Census Block Locator API, and didn't realize with some digging around at Census that we had something like this in the works. It came out, I don't know, 2 weeks or so after the last time we talked on the phone, and we decided we're going to go with our homegrown stuff. But that's the long and short of that. The Decennial API, the ACS API, this will be some very popular data. This is the thing that generates the counts that go for apportionment. This is the thing that generates the numbers that are used in allocating federal funds based on population. This is the big number coming out of the decennial census and the replacement for the long form. So when you found information about the number of Vietnamese speakers in a community, or the number of persons with less than a bachelor's education and divorced or something like that, that was all the long-form questions that aren't there anymore. They happen now in the American Community Survey on a rolling sample, and that data will be available through this DataWeb API. We're in a testing phase. I asked several times, can I say we're ready to go when I get here? And no, I can't say that. We have some data partners, Census data centers, state industry data centers, groups like that have partnered with us through the years on the decennial census and disseminating our statistics. They will be our first set of testers. That will start by the end of this week, perhaps, and go for a couple of weeks. After that, mid-May or so, we're going to be looking for a wider range of testers, and I hope I can recruit some folks in this room or some of your colleagues back at your offices to be in that community of testers. We want to test the API. We want to test the results. We want to see, is this something that will work when you're trying to build applications? Is this something you can use with your applications? Down the road, we're going to have some information on daytime populations. So when somebody is working on the next version of the Wiser app and they want to look at how you're going to evacuate, you use what you've got. You use something from National Weather Service, so you don't have to go look up the weather. You use something from Census about who's actually working in that city, not who lives there, and what are the directions they're going to go, from your own transportation statistics to get out of town. So those kinds of feedback, I would really love to have that kind of stuff in May, and hopefully by sometime in June, we'll have this open to the world, and we'll begin seeing what the rest of the world thinks of it. Let's see. Here's the sample call when you make a call. This is what I've seen. I cut and pasted this from one of the development machines. So it's pretty much a GET. It's using a key, API key. I'm not so certain that's the way we want to go, but that's the way we're starting off right now because people want to be able to cut off a bad user. And I'm not sure that people wouldn't just spoof additional keys if they were trying to do something, but our security office is more comfortable right now with having a key, so that's the way we're going. And then return simple JSON. You can return JSON-P, you can return XML, depending on parameters on the call. It's the kind of thing that should work fairly well with caching and content delivery networks, etc. It's fairly simple at this point, but we're just beginning to touch the tip of the iceberg, not even the portions visible above the water. Census has so many data sets covering so many topics that devising something as a API layer above that to generalize, which is the actual project I'm on, is going to be a challenge. It's challenging already. But this is what the initial API will look like heading out. We do have our developer website, API forum, ideascale.com, online now. There are some moderators, and we're ready to start getting people saying, why don't you do this, why don't you do that, or hopefully very soon, I tried to do this, and I think it would be better if you did X, Y, or Z. We will have a developer site at /developers off the Census webpage, and we're kind of taking lead from people who are further along. I got involved in the project last fall, and I started off talking to some folks at NASA and FCC and National Weather Service. What did you do? How did you move forward? How did you address this and that? And these are some of the ideas that I heard. Engage the developer community. Have something right off your main site. Don't make people go down 4 links and then submit a form to get to the developer's API resources. So coming down a little further in the future, we'll have our generalized API service with a pragmatic REST kind of approach to the architecture. We'll have more variables from the demographic stuff that's in these first data sets because it's not the complete decennial census. It's not the complete American Community Survey. And then we'll have more data sets, including some economic statistics, perhaps foreign trade things, leading economic indicator kinds of things. The economic census will be coming out sometime in 2013 with their numbers for the 2012 businesses. And these things can be general or can be nailed down to locations. And you can't take something and say, the Census Bureau's economic census showed that there were 17 of these manufacturing establishments in this county, and it showed that the population back in 2010 was 72,639, so there's this many per person. You can't mash those together and say, this is a Census Bureau estimate, but you can go and get those numbers, and you can put them in something and say your sources came from the Census Bureau. That's part of the culture change where Census has got a lot of statistically minded people, strangely enough, who have a dedication to the quality of the numbers. So to say that we're going to make something accessible, this actually came up and we went before the director, before we got his answer, that people can do that now. To say that you're going to make something available where people can funge it around and come up with something and call it a census number when it's not even statistically valid. It's referring to the geography from 2012 and the geography from 2011 when the county has annexed all these places or something. The word from the director is people can do that now. So having the API making it possible doesn't make things any worse. But that's the kind of culture change thing we're running into. People who own the data, people who own the operations, people who own security. It's all new to everyone. Mike Kruger. Commerce is our parent department. Census Bureau is one of the agencies under Commerce. And Mike Kruger, who's not able to be here, asked me to throw in a plug for the Commerce App Challenge. If you use one of the Commerce data sets and write the top app, you can win $5,000. The second best app, $3,000, and the third best is $2,000. There's his contact information, or it's docbusinessappschallenge.gov if you want to go take a look at it. Lastly, well, not quite lastly, but the last thing I can offer is something like lessons learned. We are not there yet, so I wish I could say, here's what we learned on our 17th different application that was coded for 12 human languages plus Esperanto and Klingon. But here's what I have learned trying to move census forward. Ask. Events like this are a fantastic opportunity. I'm glad that these guys have pulled this together and I had the chance to be here. But I started off making phone calls. I just went out and found open.gov sites and making phone calls and emails. And eventually, sometimes it would take 2 or 3 forwards before it got down to the person who was the one who responded to me, and then we go back and forth and we talk about data issues and standardizations and all kinds of technical things and how to engage people and how to work around policy issues, etc. Don't forget the security policy operation. Everybody who has anything to do with your mission has something to do with making it automated in this fashion. If they were in charge of creating publications, then they're now in charge of making sure your API is cool. Start small and keep moving. Don't ever give up. As long as you keep moving, you'll get someplace where you didn't used to be, and you'll find out cool things on the way. Okay? And then I had some questions I wanted to ask, but I guess I'm out of time, huh? Okay. Some of this is more technical stuff, and if anybody has input they can offer, please speak up when we get a chance to talk later. Okay? Thank you.
Jason, you ready? All right. Next up is Department of Education, and I think in the true spirit of a meetup, Jason was actually just writing code and pushing it over to a site. And we're going to use the handheld mic for Jason because he's going to drive from his box and show a site. So, all right. So he's going to get the site online, and then stay up here for a second, maybe say something. Next up after this is HHS. HHS is here. Yeah. Yeah, no worries. So while Jason gets ready, I know that we're going to have pizza delivered in about 15, 20 minutes. So we'll let you know where that is. It's in down the hall on the left in a room. Oh, and there's breakfast food already in there, right? Yeah, so if anyone needs a snack, there's a whole bunch of food already in there. Maybe. You're good. Yeah.
If I may say before starting. Okay. If I may say before starting here, the stuff that Census is doing is just really unbelievable. They have such a wealth of information and statistics that's out there. So going API is just going to take that to a whole nother level, and so excited to see that. I've been at a few Data Without Border hackathons here in town, and it's amazing to use the American Fact Finder to go through all of that data, and now just bringing it to APIs is going to fuel just such another level of what could be done with government data. So super excited to see that. All right. So I'm just going to go ahead and wing this. This is in the spirit of Dev Days. Going to give you a really early preview. That's our attempt to be kind of cool at education and give you something that's not fully baked, that's not fully ready, but give you an early preview. I'm just going to go ahead and sort of free flow here on some of the stuff that we're doing at Ed. I see a lot of friends here that are around the room. It's awesome to see you guys. And Mike, thank you so much for putting this together, and the FCC for hosting us. One thing that I love about working in government is that it's a very collaborative environment. I've worked with many people as I look around the room here in conversations about our Drupal websites, about how to use open data, collaborating, mashing our data sets together to do different things. It's just an absolute awesome opportunity. And because we're working in public good, we're able to share information. So I've talked here with Mike Reich from FCC and said, how did you build that thing? And he'll open up the source code, or he'll walk me through his best practices. No competitive advantage there. We get to do the same thing over at education. So that's one of my favorite things to do here in government is share success stories. So please feel free to contact me at any time, and I really recommend talking with all of your other colleagues here. So one of our primary websites is data.ed.gov. This is a website which highlights a lot of our special topic and high priority grant information. We've constructed this very quickly about 2 years ago. We had a need to show some of our high priority investing in innovation grant data. We had 35 days to build this. We had a very small budget. So we used open source software. This is Drupal 6. The tremendous amount of modules that are out there helped us very quickly put together this website and present that data. It was very successful. We had over 1,600 applicants for investing in innovation, only around 101. There were many great ideas that we wanted to show other people and then have those organizations network. So data.ed.gov started with I3 and successfully met those goals. In its 2 years in existence, we started building this up to bring more developer information. One of my favorite pages here is data.ed.gov/developers. This shows the APIs that we started standing up with inside of education. We have some of our highest value sets, K through 12 grade school listings, demographics, number of teachers that are working, also colleges and university listings, financial information, program enrollment, so forth and so on. This was also actually tacked onto the benefit that the GSA is providing with data.gov and the fantastic platform that they've stood up there. We tapped into the Socrata product that they have at explore.data.gov to upload some of our core data sets, and then that instantly turned them into interactive data. And that's APIs that you could call via web services, CSV, XML, geodata, so forth and so on. I'm really a huge fan of this because so much of our data is sourced in CSV files, typically 500 rows to 100,000 rows. It was so easy to take that spreadsheet and upload it to explore.data.gov to get an interactive data set. So what we're looking at here is one of the pages for our data sets on data.gov, explore.data.gov. Right away, we see an interactive spreadsheet, which I could filter, search, so forth. I could also export the data in a number of formats, including everybody's favorite, the PDF. All right, good. Just a joke. CSV, JSON. Again, this is no programming. We didn't have to do anything. We uploaded a spreadsheet, hit publish, and all of this functionality came free from the data.gov platform. And then also, as you see here, there's APIs that we can actually call into, make interactive calls, and documentation. Super easy to use. If you haven't used the data.gov platform and you want to move into APIs very quickly and easily, I would completely recommend checking this out because it's a very fast way to get up and started. There's also, I haven't worked with this very much, but I know that there's also automated ways of pushing data. So there's a lot there for free. GSA is providing it. Really recommend checking it out. All right. The second half, now this is, as Mike said, seriously, I was back there just wiring this up as we came. So this is a developer preview of an open source module that we'll be publishing come mid-May. We call this the Data Visualization Wizard. It's a open source Drupal module. Basically, it takes the experience that we've learned in data visualization. We've confirmed that it is not a fad. So we've spent some time turning the patterns that we use at data.ed.gov into a very simple point-and-click wizard. Right now, I'm using the power of views, view CVS, charts and graphs. These are all Drupal modules that we've used to bring together. It takes us about 4 to 12 hours to make each data presentation. What we would like to do is turn that into 30 minutes or less. And also take away a lot of the technical complexity so we can have our program managers, our program officers be able to have their staff upload it directly, right? So the right level of complexity that I want is somebody to be able, who knows Excel, who's a power user in Excel, to be able to use this module to publish. We will release this as open source, so this will be free and available if you use Drupal in your organization or would like to stand up in an internal portal to use this. Totally free to do. Also, feel free to modify the source or work with us to collaborate to add functionality. So the basic patterns that we're trying to capture with the data visualization wizard is this pattern that we use on data.ed.gov for our grant programs. It basically starts out with the title. We've got a small description of the program right below. Then we have what's called the summary pages. Typically a map, some geolocation data. This is a listing of the applicants who applied for this grant. Some charts and graphs describing some of the factors in the grants. So we're looking at some pie charts and then also a bar chart. This is a bar chart of the applicant's states. So a very easy way for somebody to get a good picture of what this application is all about. Down below that, we have filtering and searching. Down below that, we have a summary listing. And this doesn't have to be grant data. It could be anything that's sourced in a CSV or an Excel spreadsheet. Down below that, we have CSV downloadable data. In the module, we'll have XML and JSON. And then also, we have a link off to a detail page to where you could get more factors on that application. So now I would like to show our work in progress, and again, to be released around mid-May. So the first thing I'm going to do is run out here to data.gov and pick up a geo data set. I just reviewed this one this morning. So no tricks up my sleeve. This is all real time. We've got one here for worldwide M1 plus earthquakes. So I'm going to go ahead and click through that. I've got a nice CSV download here, so I'm going to go ahead and save that. Put that on the desktop. Call that earthquakes. Actually, I'm going to rename that. And I don't think that changed the extension. Let's see if this works without changing it. So we're building off of a module that's already in Drupal called the importer. One of the reasons for writing this module is also to bring down the module dependency. We have a lot of modules that are based on each other. Once in a while, one breaks, and then you have to roll that back. We want to reduce down the complexity in that. This is only dependent on two modules. One's importer, which helps import the CSV or Excel files into a database. One is called schema, which helps importer navigate that. Then, of course, the data visualization wizard. So what I'm going to do is use this importer to import some data. Here's my earthquakes.csv. Upload file. Great. Let's create a new table based on that. Great. The importer module already recognizes integers and floats and etc. One thing of note, I have a Latin long in this data set. That's going to help me map it in just 1 second. Table name is earthquakes. Great. Next. Finish. Okay. Now I've got my data into the database. Next thing I'm going to do is go and create a visualization. Picking my data table, giving it a title, and then my data table. Page size, how many records do I want on a page? Let's start with 50. Body, this is a description of the data set. These are earthquakes. Options for CSV, JSON, and XML downloads, depending on what I would like in my data set. This is a base Drupal, just giving a URL. So this will become /earthquakes. Get an error message, some rough edges. But the first thing I want to do is go in and then select which fields that I want to show on my summary page, and then select what fields I want to show on my detail page. And then also I could select which field to include in my data feeds. So for this, I'm just going to select magnitude, NST, and region. Let's make the magnitude and region sortable. In the detail page, let's include everything. I don't have the data downloads working, but I think that you could imagine what that's going to look like. Basically, you'll have the CSV, JSON, and XML buttons. Click on that. The data will download directly. Okay, so now going back to my data set, let's view it. I enabled magnitude, NST, and region, and there we go. We've got a listing. Okay, pretty good. The first record is linked to the detail page, so now I've got a very quick detail page. Let's go back and do a little bit more with this. I want to add in a map, so I'm going to add in a leaflet map. It's going to ask me what's my latitude and longitude field. Now let's go back to my data set, give that a view. Now I've got my title, description, and a map. At May's release, you'll be able to click on the points and see information about that. Let me very quickly add a couple more summary panes. I'm going to add a D3 map. This is a very interesting state-based map. This isn't going to be wired up at this point, but just want to show what that looks like. And let's add some of those pies. Okay. Let's add a bar. And then let's go back and see what that looks like. So now I've got, this is actually something that I've worked with somebody from Census who's doing a lot of work in D3 and JavaScript, actually picked up his pattern and included in this module. What this is a comparative state map, which will be very interesting, where you could wave over and see what's higher or lower than the state that you're over. Pie chart, bar graph, and etc. So once again, please feel free to contact me if you're interested in this. If you'd like an early developer preview, I'm happy to give you the source code of the location where we're building it. Jason.Hoekstra, HOEKSTRA at ed.gov. Get on the list, and I'll send you a link once this is available, and we'd love to hear your comments. Great. Thanks.
Thanks, Jason. That's just killer. Great stuff. Next up is Health and Human Services. I think we have their presentation already loaded. After HHS is Energy. Matt, you ready? Okay. And I think Pizza just got here in a minute, so we'll be able to.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm George from HHS. Give you a little bit of a preview of stuff that's out there. Certainly not all-inclusive, but things that I'm working on and know about. So this is another coming in June. Healthdata.gov is going to be using CCAN, which is an open source data portal that has a really rich RESTful API with a lot of great features. HDI Forum, or as Todd Park, our U.S. federal CTO, likes to refer to it, the Health Data Palooza, is where this stuff will be announced and where it'll be live. So there's a link to CCAN, and there's a link to the API documentation there. I think you'll find it pretty rich. It looks like what you would expect. It's RESTful. The patterns look like, the request patterns look like that. It manages keys. You can do JSON callbacks. You can even do RDF for those cool kids that are into that stuff. There's an existing site, health.data.gov, which is already publishing a bunch of linked data. So this is also very RESTful, except now we have a RESTful data model. We can dereference the definition of our metadata. So I appreciated CIO Van Rokel's remarks about doing better metadata. Would encourage all of you all to check out what's happening with metadata. The example link given here, which is live, will take you to the definition of a compare data model, or vocabulary as it's often called, and a class called measure. You'll see a list of instances of that type, and you'll be able to traverse around. You can also go to the dataset and get a dynamic list of all the data sets. You can traverse into a particular data set, which will accumulate lots of other strongly typed metadata about that data. That particular data set. You can get to individual records, each having a unique URI. And so when you go to that particular data set and the record set 55,000, record 1, it'll come back and say this is about this particular measure, and it pertains to this particular hospital. Everything has very strong, globally disambiguated identity via HTTP URIs. So there's lots of other great features on health.data.gov, such as any format you might imagine, all the usual suspects, JSON, Atom, CSV, other flavors of RDF are available there. You can traverse the data model without knowing anything about it and just sort of interactively follow your nose to see the relationship of how hospitals are measured with particular metrics against a given condition, which is mostly the data that you'll find there. Lots of other stuff going on at HHS. There's a recent video cast from the National Library of Medicine that I'd encourage you to take a look at. About 10 different projects and their APIs were detailed in that video cast. One of the last year's Health Data Palooza highlights was the Health Indicators Warehouse. For those of you that know anything about how Microsoft platforms do REST, you might be able to make sense of that. It's a little difficult for me. CMS is data.medicare.gov. This is an instance of the Socrata platform. So any of you that are interacting with any of the Socrata APIs, the SOTA APIs, which there's a link to there on data.gov, would also be able to interact with the CMS data there as well. And as I said, this is certainly not exhaustive. There's a lot of other CDC and other NIH and other FDA related work that I didn't have a chance to put together. So wanted to introduce you to one of the challenges that's going to be happening with this year's Health Data Palooza. We're talking about Web 3.0 APIs. So this is strong typing and globally disambiguated identity. There is an implementation story here that came out of data.gov.uk. So there's this linked data API. The objective of this is to be able to use strong typing but and have underlying semantic data. But for those of us that are that can't spell RDF or don't know the Sparkle query language, what we're doing is abstracting the parameterization of the request URI so that it looks like any other sort of Web 2.0 API to a developer. So there's an implementation of that particular API at the second link. That particular one is a PHP implementation, which is actually live on data.gov.uk at the third link, for example. There's lots of data being served that way. There's a really sophisticated use of this API from the Ordnance Survey folks, the equivalent of the EPA and the USGS kind of combined. So there's a lot of geospatial driven statistics data that you'll see with some reference API documentation at that link. And finally, all of that was commercialized in this really slick product called Kasabi that I would encourage you to take a look at to get a sense of what Web 3.0 APIs are starting to look like that we'll be working on healthdata.gov and focused on quite a bit. So we're using GitHub because it's fun and we can do Git and Wiki and issue tracking stuff. We might end up using Read the Docs, which is kind of a continuous document integration tool that's written in Python that you can find at that particular site. We've been having fun with Scrum Do. I don't know if anybody else has been doing Scrum Agile development, but Scrum Do has been a really nice complement to some Scrum projects we have going on at HHS right now. So wanted to put a shout out for vocab.data.gov. Thanks to my partner in crime, Chris Musilek here from GSA, and Gene Holm, our data.gov evangelist. There's now this fledgling, sort of new vocab.data.gov site. So this is the kind of place where you can define a type, such as the live link given here, a data schema, a class of things called data schemas. And so you could publish your data schema and say it's a type of data schema as defined by the data reference model. You might also use some W3C standards for describing government linked data or open government data, such as the data catalog standard, which is currently supported by the CCAN data portal and will likely soon be supported by Socrata as well. So that will facilitate catalog federation across these different instances of open data sites. So get with the program. Yeah, all the cool kids are doing it. Schema.org, graph.facebook.com/schema/opengraph. So this machine-readable metadata stuff is generally what's happening, and this is what the linked data community has been doing in a non-proprietary and very open standards kind of way. So on schema.org, you can only use the types and the entities and the relations that Google defines for you for their purposes of search engine optimization. Same with Facebook, but for vocab.data.gov, you can put your strongly typed metadata that is HTTP gettable so that you can see the definition and the relationships of that class and the properties that it has off of vocab.gov and refer to that in your data sets. I want to encourage you to do that. As far as lessons learned, think like a product manager has been kind of the experience. Those are the two things that are always difficult to do in the government, so it's a little bit beyond just sort of getting an API out there and things like that. It's about figuring out what your product roadmap looks like and how to align that with your challenges and your acquisition strategies and things like that. And I think that's all that I had to share, and I have just a minute and a half if there are any quick questions. Andrew?
Where should one get started with vocab.data.gov?
How does one get started using vocab.data.gov? That's a great question from Andrew McRae, who's been one of the GSA data.gov team members for a while, working on OGPL. So probably just going there and looking at the site and seeing how you can, curl for the metadata that's there and ask for different formats of that metadata. Take a look at it first. Certainly reach out to me. My email is in the presentation, and probably as a first stop prior to Chris. Chris and I are kind of the tech guys behind vocab.data.gov, so feel free to reach out to me about that or any other metadata that you might like to publish there. Vocab is based on an open source Drupal module called Neologism, which is mostly focused on RDF schemas right at the moment. So it's not as useful for, say, XML schemas, for example. Yeah. Another question?
Well, just to add to that, for people who want to check out vocab.data.gov but are new to RDF, Stefan Score on Drupal.org wrote a lot of the...
Stefan Cordesquet, yeah.
Wrote some tutorials for people who are getting to know the schema org module, which is Drupal 7. And those are posted on learndrupal.org. So if people are like brand new to RDF, that's an easy place to start. And then I think that vocab.data.gov and that stuff makes a lot more sense once you...
That's a great recommendation. Openspring.net, I think, is his personal blog where he talks a lot about his experience as a Drupal 7 core committer for the RDFX modules. Yeah, project. Yeah. Any other questions? 10 seconds. All right. Thank you very much.
So next up is Department of Energy, and just take a second to grab that off of USB. And again, pizza has arrived, right? Yes. Pizza has arrived. Feel free to jet out down the hall. It's the first left after the big hallway. There's pizza, there's water, there's still breakfast stuff in there. Please make yourself at home doing that.
Hi there. So my name's Matthew Lovelace. I'm with the Department of Energy, and I wanted to thank FCC for putting this together. It's really great to talk to so many folks who are working in government or just doing development kind of in this general area. I'm a little curious about the audience. It seems like it's mostly agency folks. Are there anybody here who isn't actually doesn't work for the government? Is it? Okay, all right. So two things I want to talk to you about. One is the Abstract Energy competition, and the other is Green Button, which is the impetus for that competition. And we don't have at Energy. We are kind of a hard act to follow behind education and census and HHS particularly. We don't have as fantastic a set of developer resources, and Abstract Energy is our attempt to try and inspire some innovation and creative design outside of the Department of Energy around energy data that has been made available by utilities. So that data is available via the Green Button standard. Basically, Green Button is a open XML or CSV format for energy usage and cost data that is available to about 15 million people right now through three major utilities, two in California and one in Texas. And by the at some point in 2013, we expect at least 27 million people will have access to their electricity usage and, in many cases, their cost data through this format, based on the utilities that have committed to making this available. And we hope that it will only continue to grow. And so, Abstract Energy is I'll talk a little bit about what Green Button is exactly. First, to get this out of the way, The actual process for using green button data is kind of horrible. It's the number one question I get from developers, like, really, there isn't an API? There isn't. Green button data is available as an XML file that utility customers download and then can upload into wherever they want or store it. It's mostly about making that data available to available to the utility customers and giving them the sense that, and the reality that they own their usage data, that it's an open format, they can keep it, and it is not, that is not something that's usually the case with utility data, at least, in my experience. Most utilities will provide it as a PDF or as some other bill, and it's a little hard to get at it in an easily machine readable format. All right, so the deal with Apps for Energy is we're taking this data and we're saying, like, look, at the moment, there are some apps that help with looking at your utility usage. Some of those are like, O-Power would be an example that do it directly with the utilities. Utilities, the customer, they provide analysis and details for the utility, and then the utility turns around, offers those to the customers in a variety of formats. What we want to do is inspire some development around this open format that is not necessarily involved with the utility. So the utility's made the data available to customers in just this raw format, and then the customer is going to be able to take that data, bring it to hopefully a wide range of free or nearly so applications, and get some additional analysis, context, and information based on what these apps have put together. We've had people talking about submissions for measurement and verification of energy efficiency installations. Other people taking a more broad, just get educated about the impact of your electricity usage. So combine that with EPA data on climate and carbon emissions. Combine it with census data on demographic characteristics in your area. Combine it with EIA data on what is the typical household like. How many DVRs do they have? How many refrigerators? How much square footage in your region? And then compare that to your own household and see how your energy usage stacks up. And so if you're interested in this competition, I'm pretty sure that as long as you don't work for the Department of Energy, you can enter, though that would probably be a question for your ethics folks. And then also just anyone who's interested, it's appsforenergy.challenge.gov. And then as far as resources to support that, well, I've got a little bit about the competition here, but with mostly government folks in the room, this is less critical. Basically, you've got a month to do submissions still. And for supporting this, we've got energy.gov/developer, which don't get too excited. It's basically just a set of links to cooler development pages that have been put together by other agencies, in addition to data and documentation for Green Button itself. So we've gotten all the utilities that have actually implemented Green Button have contributed some sample data, and so that developers can see not only like what the standard looks like in theory through the main examples, but also what the standard looks like in actual implementation by the by the utilities. And it varies a little bit from utility to utility, as all but the best standards do, where some will include cost data, some don't. Some helpfully chop it up into daily increments, and others don't, and so you get a little bit of different nesting. But by and large, the standard has been common across utilities, and that also is important for opening up a much broader market for developers. So rather than creating an app that is specific to a utility, you create an app that, at least in theory, can be used by a much broader population, and that hopefully will provide some additional incentive. So that's all I've got to talk about. Basically, the major success story here already happened and was not my fault. It was the convincing of these utilities to make this data available and to use a common format that had been in the works for a while. And so finally pushing that over the cliff and making it available to consumers as a source of data that ultimately can be made available to developers. Hopefully they'll work through the regulatory and privacy challenges around making that data directly available to third parties, but for now it's a download and upload process. And then we're doing Apps for Energy to try and kickstart some innovation and development around that topic. So any questions about either Green Button or Apps for Energy? Yeah.
Real quick, I assume that it's roughly monthly or billing cycle data. It's not daily data.
Oh, yeah, sure. The question is, what is the frequency of the data that's reported? That depends on the smart meters that are installed. And not surprisingly, the utilities that are most excited about Green Button are the utilities that are installing smart meters. There's if you've got the capital, political capital around the smart grid, then that kind of plays into open data and formats. So for residential customers in the 3 utilities I've implemented so far, it's hourly, and then for commercial customers, it's every 15 minutes. And so that's fairly powerful data. And later in the year, as utilities that don't have as widespread smart meter adoption add Green Button, there will be some that will have monthly or just daily, depending on what sorts of meters they have. But the vast majority of the data and the focus on this is hourly and every 15-minute interval. Any other questions? Yeah. All right, that's all I've got. Oh, more questions? Yeah.
Where do you think that the Green Button would succeed? Where do you think the Green Button would succeed?
Yeah.
Where do you think the Green Button would succeed where Google Power and Microsoft Ohm has come and gone?
Right. I mean, that's a great question. I would say that what's fundamentally different here is that it's focused on like broad access to an open data standard, and so even if the actual like energy monitoring component of it is not that successful, I really support the idea of just giving people access to their data and making that open format available across a variety of utilities. And honestly, I don't know if it will succeed. I mean, maybe, and this is what I say when I'm playing devil's advocate. Maybe getting access to your utility data just isn't that interesting to people. But what I think is important here is that we provide this open channel for particularly small and independent developers who historically had a hard time working in the utility sector. Right? Getting access to that data, working with all these utilities it's really hard if you don't have some kind of institutional backing or some way of getting in. And so what Green Button does is it opens up the possibility of design or development insights that didn't occur with the Google or Microsoft examples and would otherwise not be possible. So that's the hope here, is that someone somewhere will have a really good idea that'll turn this data into something really valuable for utility customers, and that by opening up the Green Button standard and providing access to this large market and helping people understand how that standard works, we're going to find that insight and get those killer applications. All right, thanks, guys.
So next up is EPA. I know we have your presentation loaded. EPA's here. Yeah, great. And again, food is down the hall on the left. Wonderful. Thanks, guys. Just get that browser. I think it's just a touchpad. Oh, there you go.
to say good morning, but I guess excuse me, it's afternoon. How are you? My name is Bill Muldrow. Bill Muldrow, and I'm with the Environmental Protection Agency. Is the mic on? Okay. And I'm here today to speak just a few minutes about a RESTful service that we've developed and deployed to make available the environmental information from, mic's not on? The environmental information that's in our database called EnviroFacts. And also I have with me Sam Bronson. He's also on the team, and he'll be talking about the Developer Central. It's a development opportunity for people to get together and utilize the environmental information. Oops.
You want to browse it?
Yeah. Oh, I thought you had the link in there.
The link's in there.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, thank you. Sorry. Here's the page that gives the information about our RESTful API. Again, like I said, it provides information or access to information out of our EnviroFacts data resource. Just to back up a minute, just to give you an idea of what EnviroFacts is, it's a set of data resources from EPA, as well as a set of web tools making that set of data from EPA available. We've pulled together major systems out of EPA that represent air data, water data, waste data, toxics data, made all of that data available in an Oracle database in a warehouse that's of known architecture and structure, and plopped the web tools on top of that. So what we have now is the ability for users to get access to much of that EPA information via our website. The tools that make that data available, however, do only represent a portion of the information. And in order to try to service the community base that wants to get access to all of the information that's in EnviroFacts, we've made that data available via the service. What you can see here is that we've also published all of the metadata information for all of the systems in EnviroFacts. We've got all of the different components that are here. We've got the models. This is a model for the TRI, the Toxics Release Inventory System. And you see the entity relationship diagram. We delve down into different sections. We can move into a table, give you the actual data elements for that table, as well as the table description, and then give you information on each and every data element. That drives, from a metadata perspective, the information that we will use via the EPA or the EnviroFacts RESTful service. So this service is pretty much a URL-driven service with PARMs that allows a user to go in and modify and manipulate the actual components of the service in order to get access to the individual tables out of EnviroFacts. So you can see here we have a general URL followed by up to 3 tables that can be specified. You can also specify one data element with a Boolean logic value that you can filter that table by in order to pull back the information from that table or join with 2 other tables. We also have the ability to bring back a section of the data tables. The default is 5,000 records, but we can actually modify that and bring back varying sections of 5,000 records at a time, as well as modify the output. The default output is HTML, XML, but we have the ability to allow users to specify Excel as well as a CVS, and soon we're going to be developing a JSON output. So an example, for instance, would be right here where we are actually pulling data from a table called TRI facility, where state abbreviation in that table has a value of VA for Virginia, and we're pulling the rows 500 to 505. If we click on that, what comes back is the XML format of that information. If a user instead wanted to have that in an Excel form, just put in the appropriate parm, spell it correctly. And what comes back is the Excel version, Excel spreadsheet version of that information. And so what this gives users is the ability to access any of the data that's in any of the tables in EnviroFax, mash it up, make use of it however they please, and it exposes that information to users who have a need to get access to pieces of information that we could not otherwise give access to the users. I think that's pretty much all I needed to say about that. Okay.
Hi, I'm Sam Bronson, also with the EPA. And so, we're developing a site that's coming soon, EPA's Developer Central. So excuse the screenshot. We're still doing some internal reviews of the actual site, and we couldn't demo it today. But it is aimed at a junior developer audience. We're hoping that students are an audience that is attracted to what we're offering. And there's sort of 3 buckets there you see, and I'll just go through them really quickly. We're hoping to feature the EnviroFax API that Bill was speaking about, as well as other services as they're built out. Our focus being on providing practical examples and well-documented examples of those services and APIs. So in the case of EnviroFax, we will use some of our more popular data, our toxics data, or design for the environment, our green products data, and show folks how to navigate through the data models, locate the data, the metadata that they're looking for, and then do table joins, use some of the other filtering capabilities, and we show that in a step-by-step format. Second bucket was really inspired, at least for us, was from what the Department of Labor was doing with their SDKs, and providing sample code, and basically, in this case, doing calls to the EnviroFax API, and then dropping the output into native objects for popular programming languages, a couple of mobile languages to start. And we're doing that again with some of the more popular data. So you might pull back safe cleaners, bathroom cleaners, or all-purpose cleaners from the Design for the Environment data set, and then drop that into an iOS application. It's bare bones, but it's a place where some students might be able to get started, or at least intrigued by what we're offering them. And also, it shows them where to locate some of the data that is more accessible. And the third bucket is open source. And what we're really hoping to do is a couple of things. One is to publish some of our own applications, make those open source and available for folks to see what we've done, build from it, maybe host it so we could get a break in the cost. But that's the hope. We've been working with NASA and their team to develop our own license, and they've been really helpful. We're going to use a slightly modified version of the NASA open source license, hopefully in the near future, to add some of our applications to the website. And the other thing we're doing is highlighting websites and apps that were developed using the EnviroFax API or other web services that are free to the public, and also that are offering some source code, whether through GitHub or some other open source repository. The Code for America is an example, and they, in a matter of a few weeks, create a website called madewithdata.com, and they're using the EnviroFax API, and you go there and you can put in a zip code or location information, and they'll tell you the distance to the nearest radiation facility by miles, and some facts about radiation facilities, or they'll give you information about local bodies of water and toxic releases to those bodies of water. So they went in and they grabbed the API, which doesn't have a key. It's open to anyone, for anyone to use, and they did what we were hoping they would do. They put something together very quickly that's very user friendly, and it's up and it's available, and then their code wrappers are on GitHub. So we're going to highlight examples like that as well, and we hope to, when we roll this site out in a couple of weeks, be able to link to a code repository and also have at least one of our applications up as open source. And that's probably 10 minutes. I'm not sure. Is there any questions? Oh, I should add, just real quickly, it will be available at epa.gov/developer. That site's up now. If you go there now, there's content related to EPA's Apps for the Environment Challenge from last year. Actually, Ethan McMahon is here in the center in the back if you have questions about last year's challenge. But keep an eye out on that URL, and in a few weeks we hope to have the site up. Thanks.
I just have one quick question.
Oh,
what type of modifications are you looking to make in the NASA open source license?
There was language about registration, collecting names and phone numbers of folks, and we didn't think we needed to go through the ICR process. That was nothing major. There were some things that our legal counsel recommended we take out. They were not substantive, and hopefully that gets us along a little faster. NASA is actually working on a new version of their license as well. All right. Thanks.
All right. Let me get this. Okay, great. So more plugs for food. Make sure you go get food. There's a bunch in the back there. I get the chance to speak about fcc.gov/developer. It's really an ongoing large effort from multiple people. I'm by no means responsible. One of the key partners is our Data Innovation Initiative led by the Chief Data Officer, Greg Ellen, who isn't here today. He's at the NAB, National Association of Broadcasters Conference in Las Vegas for the week. Suffice to say, though, we do have some resources for developers. They're primarily at fcc.gov/developer, although other stuff is at /data and /maps. We definitely want lots of people to use these. These have been the place where we've been pushing them the most. We've seen most of our success in /developer. However, we do see lots of traffic going to the other places as well. I think inside these three, we've totally revamped /maps. I'll talk about it a little at the end of this. We have lots to do on /data. That seems to be a common theme I've heard so far today. I think our /data resources needs a bit of a refresh, but it is an ongoing effort. On /developer, we have about 8 APIs or links to 8 collections of APIs. These are the first 4. The Accessibility Clearinghouse was launched at our first developer meetup. We've had subsequent work around the Accessibility Clearinghouse. Greg Ellen, again, the Chief Data Officer, is the big lead here. There's, I think, around 4,000 individual resources inside that API. It's extraordinarily robust. A lot of effort going into this particular API. The next one is the census block conversion. This was our first API on fcc.gov/developer. It listens for latitude and longitude and returns the U.S. census block that's in. We now have that migrated to listen for census 2000, 2009 blocks, and 2010 blocks, all in a RESTful sense. This has been our probably largest use per volume API. The third one is our content API. That's a set of APIs that's now open sourced in Drupal. You can go to the Drupal.org site and see that API. It drives almost all of the content on fcc.gov. So it's an effort for us to give back to the community. And the last one here is all of our broadband speed test. So there's now over 4 million points in that. So this slide is unfortunately a little old. This aggregates data at a larger geography, almost all county-based. But again, you can get a whole flavor of all of the speed test data. The next sets are, there's a Form 999, which is a very important form to us on interstate telecom providers, who accesses what kinds of services and who provides what kind of services in states. You can get the full set of that provider list through that API. The FRN registration number conversion. We do everything through this FRN FCC registration number. We have an API app so you can find who those participants are. Our license view and spectrum dashboard is a huge body of data from our universal and consolidated licensing systems. These are APIs that drive all of the spectrum use that we know about. Again, a core asset at FCC. And the last link in here is to the broadband map APIs. These are, I think, now 37 or 38, somewhere in that range, number of total APIs that drive broadband map. The common theme through all of these is these are all RESTful, so very similar to everyone else's. These are all RESTful APIs that return JSON or XML. I thought it worthwhile to talk about terms of service. Given the whole notion of challenges and opportunities that people are facing, we spent a lot of time with our legal team to ferret out what were good terms of service for API use. So as a model for other folks, we don't employ any API keys at all. So there's no APIs and no API keys. You can come use our developer services and just have at it. So no API key. In our terms of service, we define the scope of those services. They're all API based. We define the use case. So they're all HTTP GET, right? So there's nothing else in our APIs. It's just GET. We require attribution. That's defined in our terms of service. We require, if you modify that you can't attribute it. So that's defined in our terms of service. We reserve the right to limit. So if we see something that's uncool, we'll limit use on that API. We reserve the right to terminate, and we reserve the right to change those APIs. So again, these are very simple language terms of service that are important for us to recognize about who's using our APIs and how and that kind of thing. The terms of service goes on. It defines claimers, limits of liabilities, indemnification, disputes, all of these things. These are important for us to make sure that the developer community has a low barrier to consume these things, but at the same time, they were a good opportunity for us to get them out. They're all very written in plain language. They're not very long. They're not, volumes of legalese. So I think they're important to recognize. The next thing I want to talk about is our structure on all of our developer pages. So if you look at Census API or Spectrum Dashboard or License View, what have you, we have these common 6 or so bullets. A description of the API, why we provide it. So this is how we came to the place of giving that data set out and the methods that we employ there. We define the methods and the parameters for every API. We give you a sample call. We tell you what the response is. Almost all of ours are XML or JSON, and if there are any previous versions. Again, the reason we think this is important is it's helpful in a structure for repeating. So the next time an API comes out that we're developing, we just go back to this page and go, okay, how do we fill this bucket? Yeah, it's these 6 or 7 things, and they're pretty easy to describe. It gets us over the hurdle of the next one. It makes the time to market much faster. Here's some sample calls. Again, these are all RESTful. The thing that I like to notice about the census lookup API is it passes a latitude and longitude and returns a census block. There are about 11 million of these in the record, and our response time is on average about 5 milliseconds. So these are super, super fast. We've architected these to be really, really fast. Here's an example call for broadband map. This data set is about 25 million records. It's listening for latitude and longitude, returning all broadband providers in a U.S. census block that the lat long is contained in. And again, 25 million records and an average response time of 11 milliseconds is pretty fast. So we're pretty excited about our architecture on that. 3 examples of where we're giving back in the community. Our first open source project was issuemap.org. It was released in February of 11. This was a great partnership with the firm GeoIQ. About a month after it was released, we open sourced the code. You can find it on GitHub, and this is a neat application. But again, it's one of the few opportunities that we've had to give back. The Drupal module, our API, our content API, this is fully open sourced. You can find this on Drupal.org. We've seen, I think, about 60 agencies or entities download and use this content type. This content API. So we're really excited about that. And our most recent one, here's the blog site when we announced releasing the /maps module. This is a Drupal module that drives our fcc.gov/maps. So this is a pretty successful API. It's very successful for us. We released this only about a month ago, and since then we've seen 3 deployments of that module. So again, us giving back in the open source community, we're really excited about. The last thing I want to talk about is something that we're doing with API management. We struggled with this in Broadband Map, and in order to really have a low barrier, again, we have no API keys, but what we did employ was an asynchronous write to a MongoDB of every API call. So every call that happens, the second to last line is an asynchronous write to a MongoDB, and we store 100% of the call, which allows us to build an application that says what's going on with that API or all the APIs. This is an example of it. It shows us the locations that are being queried in the Broadband Map dataset, not where they're coming from, but what's being queried, what data is important to end users. It shows the last 100 points received. And I think this is now up to like 12 million total calls since we launched, somewhere in that range. That was in September. And we've seen fun stuff with it, like people crawling by states. So we turned this on, and this was a live view that we captured. Someone was crawling Alabama, and the next one was Arkansas and Alaska. So we've seen cool stuff. We've also seen people crawling it latitudinally, throwing a whole bunch of latitudes at it. This, again, is not made up. This is a live shot that we've captured and gone, oh, wow, someone's really crawling this. That's really cool. So that's been fun. We've also released stuff in multiple ways, shapefile, web mapping service, or now tile sets on Mapbox. We think that's pretty important for delivery, and that's it. So, thank you. Next up is labor, right? Yeah. And on deck is NREL.
All right, so I want to talk to you about what we've accomplished the past year that we've worked on our developer site, developer.dl.gov, what we have available for developers, and where we're going in the next year. Now, really the genesis of this site started with a personal project I had where I was working on an iPad app that made use of the Flickr API. And I was really impressed with the tools that Flickr gave developers. So we went back to the office, and we built an API around the Department of Labor's data, and we use the Open Data Protocol, or OData. It's an open source project that is sponsored by Microsoft, but it has really great support for multiple data sources. So right now we've got about 28 data sets, 141 tables within those data sets, and we've just added a new function to the API that actually makes use of a Google custom search, which I'll get into in a moment. Now, if you take a look at just the APIs themselves, what you've really got is the equivalent of Chinese buffet, where they only give you chopsticks. Really great selection, really great choice of food there, but you need a certain skill level in order to enjoy it. So I got to thinking, there's got to be a better way. Because I'm thinking about the developer who has a great idea, but they're really new to development. And when I was making this mobile app, I was actually new to mobile development myself. So rather than having this standard where we say you need to be this high or have this level of expertise in order to even think about using our data, the idea is how can we lower that barrier of entry? It's sort of like, I'm a photographer myself, and I'm not about to tell anybody, you or anybody else, look, if you want to take photographs, you need to know how to use a DSLR in manual mode. It just doesn't make sense. So what we did is we released software development kits or SDKs where, in addition to the chopsticks, we also are providing developers the silverware, metaphorically speaking, if they want it or need it. And these SDKs for our API, they come in .NET, iOS, Android, BlackBerry, PHP, and Ruby. In addition to the SDKs, we also have sample code so the developers can get a little bit of a head start on the development. Now, in addition to these SDKs, we also have a sampler for our API. And this is a little bit of dog fooding right here, because this actually uses our API and allows the developer to sample the tables within our APIs, within our individual data sets, and even provide some basic Boolean logic. We also took all the documentation for the API, the SDKs, and the sample code, packaged up into an ebook format in EPUB as an option for the developer if they really want to use it. Now, we know that we're going to be adding a lot of data, a lot of more data sets as the years go by, and we didn't want to have one giant list that developers had to go through to find what they want. So we did organize them into 4 different categories. Hopefully this makes it a lot easier for developers who want data. Speaking of data, we've got agencies within the Department of Labor that have an enforcement focus, Wage and Hour Division, OSHA, MSHA, which is Mine Safety and Health Administration. So we've got enforcement data from them. We also have data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, or BLS. This data is actually live and up to the minute. So, for example, if the Consumer Price Index changes, that data is available, that change in data is actually available that moment in our API. And this is the new functionality that we've just added to our API. This is the Summer Jobs Plus search. So you can search for summer jobs, internships, mentorships, etc. with our API and include that in your apps if you want. Another case of dog fooding, we have this Labor Stats app. It's for iOS and Android. This is actually using our API and it's calling the live, up-to-the-minute data from BLS and the Employment Training Administration. Now, one of the challenges that we face at the Department of Labor is that we're a very siloed organization. We've got very independent-minded agencies, and it's one of my challenges there to try to break down those silos because, as has been mentioned earlier today, a lot of these agencies are very protective of their data. Now, our API hasn't necessarily been performing up to my particular standards. So right now we're working really hard with our IT shop to get this the server upgraded, and we hope to have that done by this weekend. Our API also when you're submitting your key, there's a timestamp that's required. We're reevaluating the necessity for that. Originally, it was included for security reasons. Now, one of the things we learned, too, is that the SDKs really work hand in hand with the API. If you release an update to the API without updating the SDKs at the same time, you can create a bit of a mess. And we had that mess with the Summer Jobs project. We didn't have the SDKs ready to go, and that was our really first big lesson that the SDKs are actually pretty popular with developers, or at least the sample code was. So what's on the drawing board? Well, we've got a lot of ideas, a lot of different enhancements that we're going to be adding to the developer site moving forward, but just a few of them. One of them is OAuth. We're going to be adding the capability for users to be able to log in, authenticate, and get access to their data, because currently right now we have just read-only data sets with no authentication. And this also opens up another opportunity for read-write data sets. With the API key infrastructure that we have, I get a lot of great metrics on how the API is being used. But I also want to give the developers metrics for how their apps are being used, and really, I think that's going to be a great thing for developers. Developer forums, we want to be better able to support the developers and also make it possible for the developer community to support itself. This one's sort of an embarrassment. We've got a developer site that is geared in many ways to mobile developers, yet it's not mobile friendly. That's one of the changes that we're going to be making this year. And going back to the silverware metaphor, one of the things I want to do is I want to reach out to the other federal agencies that have APIs and see if we can find a way to get the SDKs to support their APIs as well, so that a developer who wants to use these kinds of tools only needs to use it once to get access to any and all APIs in the federal government. So if you want to find out more or you can get started, it's at developer.dol.gov. And I got a couple of minutes, so if there are any questions. No. Yes.
Have you heard specific requests from developers for metrics on their apps?
Not personally. This is something that I thought of just as a user of the Flickr API myself. That's one of the nice tools that they give developers. You can see that your app is actually being used or not being used, and to what extent.
Do you encourage developers to come get your data directly for each application, or to source it from a central point, then source it out to their applications?
Well, really, just the same reason any of the other agencies have built their APIs is to make it easier for developers to get access to the data. And one of the things that we all know is that we've got data caps on with our mobile carriers, and there's even sometimes download limits when downloading an app over 3G. And a lot of our data sets are quite large. Some of them will break your cap in an instant. So we definitely encourage developers to use the API to get at the data. Like I mentioned, a lot of our data is data that's updated on a regular or sometimes frequent but irregular schedule. A great example is the wide variety of data from BLS. They're always modifying that data, and if they're going to be using BLS data, I would highly encourage that they use the data from the API, because then it's live and actually up to date.
Excellent. Next up is NREL, right? On deck is SBA, Small Businesses After NREL.
Hi there. So I want to talk about who, what, where, when, why of all of our services. So that's a lot to talk about in 10 minutes, so I better get going. So we'll start out with who. That's easy. Sadly, though, I'm not Roger Daltrey, and I'm not from a rock band. Instead, I'm from National Renewable Energy Laboratory. So hopefully the name is pretty self-explanatory. We're a Department of Energy lab that does all sorts of renewable energy research. So what sort of web services are we talking about here? I sort of broke this out into two parts of what we do at NREL. Part of what we do is we just expose data. And I think those are pretty easy to understand. So for an example of that, we have our alternative fuel station location. So that's just basically a big database of all the alternative fuel stations in the U.S. And we sort of maintain that database. And we have web services. You can download all of our data. You can download, just the nearest stations to a certain proximity. And this has been a good example of how our data has gotten out there. It's being used by Google, MapQuest, variety of third-party and commercial people are using this data in their own applications, which is cool to see. Another thing we sort of do with our web services, we have a lot of smart scientist-y type people at the lab that do all sorts of crazy modeling and calculations. So we also want to start exposing some of that as web services. So an example of that is something like PV Watts, which is this web service that you can give it a latitude and longitude, and basically it'll run a simulation for how much photovoltaic capabilities there should be in that area, because we can sort of estimate on a yearly cycle, this is how much sun this area gets, and this should be the output. This is how much a solar array might cost to put in. So it sort of does a whole cost-benefit analysis using some of our models and assumptions, and provides you with results, which is cool that, it's not just data, it's also sort of these models that we can expose through web services. I could go into a lot more detail. There's some other services we have, but there's a whole lot more coming. We've really, as a lab, sort of started to move in this direction of, doing things via web services because we've realized it just allows us to share and collaborate a lot more easily in the lab and outside the lab. So where are these? It's at developer.nrel.gov. We're also on Twitter at @nreldev. So check it out. When? It's now. So it's live. Go get it. So why did we do this? Part of why we did this is we like dog food and we like eating it. And, we use a lot of our own web services internally. We released developer.nrel.gov, I think, last October. And we're probably at already over 8 million web API calls that we've tracked through that. And admittedly, we're seeing increased usage outside the lab, but a lot of it's our internal usage. So that's a big part of why we did it, is we're using it ourselves. And, I'm working on a new program that's, I'm only letting myself do it through our public API. So if I need new functionality, then I have to implement a public API to do that, which is cool. Another reason we do this is we had a lot of requests from people for our data. I imagine a lot of the other government agencies are in the same boat of we have data people want, and we're usually sort of the only source for this kind of data. So, we had people like Google and MapQuest at our doors asking for this data. We had application developers who wanted access to this data that only we had. And so that was another reason we sort of did this. Another reason is we're government. So, I think it can be argued that sort of is our role, is putting this data out there for people to use and see what they do with it. And another reason is, as developers ourselves, we like other developers. So, again, just sort of putting our data out there, seeing what the other developers do with it is really cool and interesting. They may mash it up with something we might never have thought of. They might do it in some commercial application that they're building. And, we've already seen this. Some of our data has already been wrapped up into iPhone and Android applications. And from my perspective, that just means we didn't have to write that. So, hooray. So I also want to take a little bit of time to talk about how we implemented this sort of on the back end, and how we sort of tackled this as a lab, wanting to do these web services and getting them out there for people to use. So I think an important thing to understand is that there's, at a lab, it's a big family, but we don't always all speak the same language. And what I mean by that is, our group sort of does some of the web services, another group does some of the other web services, and so on and so on. And another way to look at it is, we're also dealing in different programming languages. We don't have a unified, platform that we're only developing in this one style. We have people doing Ruby applications, we have people doing Python, we have PHP, Java, and then we have a variety of backends with databases, Oracle, Postgres, Mongo, and so on. So we have a big diversity just within our developer community at NREL. So the issue is that users don't really care about this. The public doesn't care that our group implements the transportation-based services and another group happens to implement the solar services, and they shouldn't have to care. So what we really wanted to do was we wanted to build a platform for all of our services to live on. So that sort of is what we tackled. And when we were doing some of our initial services, we got some funding from Clean Cities and the Department of Energy to sort of build up this platform as we were building our first services. And what I mean by this platform is we sort of tackled the two ends of it. On the front end, we built the developer.nrel.gov site. And basically, we just wanted one place that users could come to and find all of our APIs and web services in one organized place. So we built the site, and that's fairly straightforward, just sort of one cohesive place, though, that everything is documented rather than on each group's separate sites or subsites or stuff like that. On the back end, what we've done is we've implemented this router functionality. And what I mean by that is sort of we funnel all of our API requests through this router. And this router takes care of some of the things like API key authentication, some rate limiting, and it gathers statistics. And then from that, once all those things are sort of taken care of, then they get passed off to these various back-end web services. And that means that, we don't all have to change our coding styles at NREL to all fall in one language and one style. We can still sort of keep different groups at NREL doing different things in different languages, but the router can sort of take care of that base functionality. A bit more about our router. It's basically a series of reverse proxies. It's all built on open source. And the idea is, again, just that it handles the boring stuff, so back-end web services apps don't have to. And that makes it easier for new applications and new web services from anybody at the lab. If somebody happens to be like, I just wrote this cool application in Erlang. And I'm like, well, okay. Well, we just put it behind our router. And that sort of basic functionality is out of the way and taken care of, and they don't have to concern themselves with that. So it's been great for us in that respect of letting web services be easier to build for us inside NREL. And another cool thing about this architecture that I think we've really seen is sort of this setup of reverse proxies has been really powerful for us. And as an example of that, for one application, I started to need to implement a caching mechanism for some of our data to improve performance. And rather than implement that in my specific back-end web service application, we're right now looking into implementing that at a reverse proxy level. So we could sort of keep layering these reverse proxies on top of each other, and they're all very fast and efficient. And then if we implement it at that higher routing level, then any of our back-end applications can now take advantage of caching. And the same goes for stuff like usage statistics and tracking, that sort of stuff. We can track a lot of that at this routing level, and by doing it there, then any improvements we make or anything we decide to tackle as far as tracking new kinds of statistics, then everybody benefits that's behind this. So our overall wins of this architecture, the overall theme is that it makes things easy. On the front end, it makes things easy for the public to find. All of our web services are in one place. It's easy to go through, see what we have, see what's interesting. And then on the back end, as I was mentioning, it makes it really easy for new developers within the NREL community to participate, because they just have to concern themselves with writing a new API, and then all that boring stuff of rate limiting, throttling, statistics is all just sort of handled for them by us. So it's been a really cool thing to work on, and I think that's it. And I have 37 seconds if anybody has questions. I know I blazed through that. Anybody? Okay. Oh, yes.
How did you make it so that everybody's actually using your router?
Basically, in order to, if somebody wants to have their web services on developer.nrl.gov, we basically said, for the most part, we'd like to put them behind the router. We've made a few exceptions for a few different cases, but for the most part, we say if you want your stuff documented, and the other developers within the community want that, because they want to be on our site that's available to the public. So we say, if you want that, just you have to put it behind our router. And it's pretty easy. It's basically just a mechanism to say, we'll route these URLs to this backend server that they can already have set up, and they can just keep it where it was running. Does that make sense? Okay. I think I'm out of time now. Thanks. Oh, okay.
What sort of open source was helpful in building the API router?
What sort of open source was helpful in building the API router? It's mainly a series of HA proxy servers, and then most of the custom stuff that we did is built on Ruby Event Machine, and actually a product open sourced by GitHub called Proxy Machine. We're probably going to be looking into alternatives for Proxy Machine. There's a more general Ruby Event Machine just called EM Proxy that I think we'll switch to, but it's basically open source Ruby event-based proxy systems. So, thanks.
Next up, SBA. Yeah. You're all set? I think we've got your application. All right, great.
Hi, everyone. My name is Steve Morris. I'm with Small Business Administration, and my role there is really to do all things that are not related to technical things. So I won't be as technical in my slides as some of the other people have been. I typically do the tweets and the Facebook posts, but certainly our audience, our constituents, are small business owners who are often developers, and so we are really looking forward to. We've just only dipped our toes into this space. We're a really small agency, of course, with a really big mission. We only have about 800 staff here at SBA, so it's kind of interesting to see the problems that some of the bigger agencies that have had with the siloed nature of your agency. We're not really a siloed agency. We're an independent agency, and we just don't have enough people to do this type of thing. So, just a quick point about the environment that we work in. There's about between 26 and 29 million small business owners, many of whom are interested in getting involved with developing applications or using applications for their business. So for us, working in this space is going to be a really important part of what we're doing going forward. What SBA does, though, we call the 3 C's. It's capital, contracting, and counseling. And so we've tried to target some of our API involvement in each of those 3 areas, and I'll talk a little bit about each of those. Our counseling programs, we have about over 1,000 locations across the country where small business owners and aspiring entrepreneurs can go in and meet with a counselor, get assistance filing paperwork to start a business. All these things can be very confusing. They can also help preparing loan packages to approach a lender with. So what we're really trying to do is connect all these resources together online for people to make it easier. This has kind of been this is where our siloed piece comes in. We're not directly involved with these. We call them resource partner locations. So we're a Drupal website with about 12 million annual visitors. These are mostly people who are looking for information about starting a business. So anything from how do I get a grant to start a business, which there are none. How do I approach a lender with my loan package? How do I file paperwork to become an official business? Which a lot of the things take place at the state and local level, which I'll get to in a second. Of course, we're working on a content API, which I'll also mention. Let's see. So the first set of API tools that we did are available at sba.gov/API. And the first of those is our licenses and permits tool. We know that licenses and permitting is a kind of very confusing process for novice entrepreneurs. So what we did was we created a database of all state and local permits in key industries that we know people are trying to start businesses in. And that goes down to the mostly state and local level. So we're looking at, if you're in XYZ County in Ohio, what permits do you need to start a restaurant? And so we only have about 10 or so industries now, but this is a huge database, and it's all accessible via API. The second is our loans and grants search tool. This is really what programs, government-sponsored programs, might I be eligible for. So it has a few specific demographic pieces of information that users can input, and it will return federal, state, and local guaranteed loan programs that they might be eligible for. This was really important because, as new things develop, we've used this tool to build other sites. So the loans and grants search tool is actually the underlying logic for the new business.usa.gov website, which the president has mentioned on several occasions. So it was really great to have that already built. One of the things that we needed to do to make all of this happen was create a database that connected county, city, and city information with the website that belongs to that government agency. So we didn't have a database that said, I'm in zip code 45239, thus I live in Cincinnati, Ohio, so I'm connected to Hamilton County, to the city of Cincinnati, to this XYZ township. So that's what that database does. And that's actually been the most popular thing that we've seen, is that people are asking us about how to use that information. So all this kind of goes towards our mission of helping people get started with entrepreneurship and helping them access capital. The next thing that we did was we partnered with the Department of Defense. I think it was actually the Department of the Navy for this site. And this is our green.sba.gov/APIs website. And what this does is it pulls in information from Fed BizOps that is particular for small businesses. And in this case, the site itself is really targeted at green contracting opportunities. So if you were to go and use the site as a user, you could pull down what opportunities are available for green contracting. But as a part of that, we've released an API that allows you to search not just for green opportunities, but also small business opportunities. So we're really happy to make this available to help small businesses access the federal contracting space. Also, through this, we released an API that allows you to pull back your SBA district office, which was not part of the original API, which we found we really needed that. One thing I also wanted to mention is that we're participating in a new data.gov community around business data. So we've partnered with Census, Commerce, and a number of other agencies to launch this. And so this is available now as underneath the Business USA initiative. So that's at data.gov/business. We just launched that less than a month ago. And that's aggregating all the data that we know is coming from the business-facing agencies. And then finally, we have an online community that we've had for a number of years for small business owners to talk about small business issues, but we also have a dedicated area for developers. So if you're interested in using our data and new things that are coming, that's the area where we're announcing that and talking about that with developers. So finally, I just want to mention that we are in the area of the counseling and training. We're working on a content API. SBA.gov has about 10,000 pages worth of information on anything from marketing your business to complying with various federal laws and regulations. And that's something we're really looking forward to making that all available through an API. And that should be done by the end of the month. So with that, I'll stop there and take any questions. Cool. Thank you.
So much great stuff. Thanks so much, SBA. We're going to do a quick change in schedule. I'm going to bring up next Joel Gurn, who's an FCC person chairing the White House Disclosure Task Force on Smart Disclosure, and after that will be GSA-USA.gov. Thanks. Joel?
Yeah, sure. Great. Hi. Thanks, everybody. I'm a late addition to the program, and I'm just going to take a couple of minutes. I'm the Senior Consumer Advisor at the FCC, formerly Chief of the Consumer and Governmental Affairs Bureau, and as Mike said, I chair the White House Task Force on Smart Disclosure. So I wanted to just tell you a little bit about the work that we're doing. I think it's different from certainly the kind of work that you all have been talking about today, but what we're really focusing on is figuring out how to select and present government data sets and other data sets that will be of particular use to consumers trying to make choices in complex markets. So the definition of smart disclosure is that it is about releasing data to help people make choices that they really just could not make with conventional disclosure. Examples include choosing a cell phone plan, choosing a mortgage, which turns out to be fairly complex, credit card choices, transportation choices, like airline flights, choices of colleges, many, many different areas of government we've found when it comes to really helping consumers with these important life decisions. You really have to make data available in ways that can be sorted and ultimately used by these consumers, either directly or more likely after it's been presented to them by a third party. So one statistic to think about to sort of get a sense of the importance of this is that cell phone plans, which of course we deal with here, a single company, a single carrier may have more than 1,000 plans by the time you look at all the different permutations of fees, rates, limits, handsets, etc. So the task of finding the best plan, the best handset, etc. for you when you're looking across multiple carriers really needs some kind of what we're calling a consumer choice engine or a choice platform, some kind of online interactive tool that people can really use. Another way to think about this is that what we're really trying to do is to sort of make possible kayak for everything. Kayak, I think, even more than the other transportation engines, really allows you to do all kinds of filtering, all kinds of individual preferences. The idea of smart disclosures, that you would ultimately be able to do that with things including health insurance and health care and all these other kinds of choices that I've mentioned. So I wanted to bring this to your attention because we're now at a point where the work of the task force has moved to a place of really bringing together different kinds of data sets, working with data.gov, and we've gotten fairly far along in talking with a number of agencies, including many of yours, to see what data they may have that would be especially helpful when you look at it through this kind of lens, which is a different kind of lens than has often been done. We think there are, out of thousands and thousands of data sets on data.gov, probably a few hundred that are especially relevant to this kind of use. We're now working to see if there are ways that we can sort of help bring those together and highlight them. And Mike tells me that we have everybody's, we know where you all live, we have your email addresses. We will certainly keep you all posted as that work continues. But I really would want to invite you to help follow that work, to follow that work and help us develop it in ways that are really going to be useful. And this involves a couple of things. One is within your own agencies, thinking about the data sets that will be most useful to actual consumers, end users, where the end user is somebody who's making a consumer choice in a consumer market, as opposed to somebody who's working on policy issues or, other kinds of issues. Also think about ways in which the data sets that you own may relate to data from other agencies in ways that could ultimately be very significant and informative. One example from our own, the broadband map, is the mashup that was done between the broadband map and Department of Ed data, so that you can not only see where how broadband performance varies by location, but also how that relates to school districts and what's available in different school districts. On the task force, we think there are many, many different opportunities to do creative kinds of mashups like that with government data that will ultimately be helpful to consumers. Also wanted to just flag for you a couple of resources. I don't have slides, but I can just give you a couple of very simple ways to find out more about this. We recently had a summit hosted by the White House and the National Archives with more than 300 people that did get some good coverage, because the White House is now really encouraging the use of this kind of approach. So Alex Howard from O'Reilly Media wrote it up. If you Google Alex Howard Smart Disclosure, you'll find his piece. And we also had a nice piece in Government Executive. So if you go to govexec.com and search for Smart Disclosure, you'll find a write-up of the summit there as well. But we're interested in hearing from you. You can reach me through Mike very easily. Very interested in input, and we'll probably be reaching out to many of you as this work continues. So this is in some ways sort of a preview of where we're going. If anybody has any questions at this point, be happy to answer them. Yes?
Likely what would be coming out of it, a software development kit, kind of a common engine that different agencies could use, or recommendations, or what's likely deliverable and rough time frame?
Well, I think what's most likely to... oh, sure. Hey, hello. Yeah, the question is whether we're likely to come out with a sort of developer kit or common ways of approaching the data and what the time frame might be. What we're focusing on initially is really identifying data sets of interest, and the time frame on that I think will probably be within the next month or two. We'll have some way of doing that. But once that's out there, it's going to need tremendous amount of interaction with developers and the developer community. My understanding actually is that data.gov is starting developing a developer site that they are intending to have be a place for a lot of different tools that can be used across their different communities. Actually, I shouldn't say site. We're really talking about a developer community on data.gov, like the one you just saw on business. So I think that'll be their way of pulling a lot of these tools together. But we would see that as interacting very much with the data that we're trying to bring to the fore. So, yeah. Anything else I can tell you? Okay, well, thanks very much, and expect to hear more from us as the work progresses, and we're really interested in hearing from you as you see what this is about. Thanks again. Great.
Thanks so much, Joel. So next up is USA.gov, right? And on deck, CFPB. Yeah, no, maybe.
Our development had to leave, but I'm happy to.
You want to? Excellent. No, here's a little. Oh, it's not. Yeah, okay. I don't know, does it work? Yeah, perfect.
Hi, everyone. My name is Michelle Chronister. I work for USA.gov, which is part of the General Services Administration. And USA.gov aims to make government easy for people. So we know that someone just wants to renew their passport. They don't care that the Department of State's Bureau of Consular Affairs issues passports. So the idea is they can come to us. We help them figure out where they can finish their government services and tasks. So with that, we have a few resources that we recently made available for developers. We reorganized and expanded our section. It's now available at usa.gov/developers. We currently have 3 different things available I'm going to talk about briefly, 2 that I know of that are in the works, and then we want to hear from you. So what do you want to see? What can we do to improve this? We're still very new in this area. If you want to keep up with what we're doing or get changes, when we make changes to our APIs or our resources, if you go to the page, there's a button that says email alerts. You can click on that and you'll get notified. So first of all, if anyone goes to Bitly and shortens a .gov or .mil URL, they get a 1.usa.gov short URL in return. So when somebody clicks on that short URL, Bitly tracks that data. So how many times it's clicked, where in the world it was clicked. We make all of that available as a raw pub sub feed, which we know is not the easiest to work with, so we also store an hourly archive of that data. So last, I guess it was July, we held a 1.usa.gov hack day in 4 locations across the country, and people came up with some really interesting and exciting ways of using this data of the short URLs, because it really allows you to see what's popular, what government information is popular right now that people are shortening and clicking on. So you can see the projects that are available from the hack day in this section of the site. We also have a site called answers.usa.gov, which is a database of frequently asked questions that we use when people contact us by calling 1-800-FED-INFO or by coming to our website and emailing or web chatting with us. So if you call us, you'll get the same answer that you can find on answers.usa.gov. So we have over 2,000 answers in English, and we're currently building up our Spanish database of answers, and we have over 100 at the moment. And we make these available in XML that you can download and use however you want. If you want to see how we're using it, like I said, you can go to answers.usa.gov. We also have a product recall API that if you go to our site and you search for something, you can then narrow your search to food safety recalls from CDC, car safety data from the National Highway Transportation Administration, and product safety recalls from the Consumer Product Safety Commission. And anyone can get an API key to use this data, but you do have to have a key. Then this week, this is not currently available, but this week we will be launching a social media registry. So if you've ever wondered, is facebook.com/XYZ a real government account or is it a spoof, you'll now be able to check. And so you'll be able to come to USA.gov, you'll be able to search by platform, you'll be able to search by agency. We're also going to make all this data available as an API. So with a simple verify call, you'll be able to say, yes, this is a real, for instance, Consumer Product Safety Commission Twitter account. Or no, it's not. You'll be able to get the data in XML or JSON, and you won't need an API key. And as I said, this isn't currently available, but we'll be launching this week. So if you check our developers section, when it's available, the resources will be there for you to use. And we also currently have another URL shortening solution called go.usa.gov, which is available to only government employees. You have to have a government email address to log in and use it. And since we've launched it, everyone's been asking for an API. Internally, we've wished we've had an API. We're working on it, and we will have one available this spring. So when that's available, the documentation will also be available for you to use. So like I said, we're really new. We have a few things. We'd like to make it better, so we want to hear from you. If you have questions or suggestions, I'd like to take them now. So the question was, will the go.usa.gov API only be available to government? It seems like at the moment, the simplest solution we're going to be able to implement will be that registered users will have an API key that they'll be able to use. So it would only be available to government in the beginning. But that's something that I think we'd like to talk about expanding and figuring out other ways of using it. But I think in the beginning, the answer will be yes. Yes.
I was just taking a look at the answers.usa.gov XML, and I guess that seems like a really lightweight example of something that I'd be curious where your conversations have gone about the idea of if you also had that with agency as a field, and then made it so that it was, say, JSON instead of XML. Basically, any agency could then just eat that for an FAQ section on their own site.
So right now, answers.usa.gov is a repository of answers that we use from the National Contact Center, and that contact center also answers questions for some other government agencies. So if you start looking in there, you'll see that we answer questions, for instance, for Fish and Wildlife. So when people call and they say, like, what do I do? There's a badger in my backyard. It has stuff like that. It has stuff for Department of State. So currently, it has multiple agencies in it. And right now, like I said, it is only available in the XML, but we would like to explore other ways of making it available so other agencies or the public can use it in other ways. But let's talk after if you have some more specific ideas.
And then just on a more general level, how does an agency, what's the best way for them to, if they want to partner on something that they would care a lot about with y'all and try to, lend a shoulder to that? Or do y'all have the bandwidth to kind of have that depth of partnership right now?
I mean, we'd love to talk about partnerships with other agencies. It would depend, I guess, on what the partnership is, if we could commit to it right now or if we'd need more resources. But, I mean, we'd love to talk about it, so let's talk after. Anything else? Please let me know if you have suggestions or questions. Like I said, we're really new at this. We're just putting some things out there. We want to see how people are using them, so we'd love to hear your suggestions and your feedback. Thank you.
Okay, so next up is CFPB, and after that is the Energy Information Administration. Thanks, Eric.
Hi, everybody. In true startup fashion, our developer had to go back and develop. So I just quickly want to say we haven't quite existed for a year. Because of that, we're desperately looking for additional developers. So if you're interested, please email tech@consumerfinance.gov. If you're interested in the kind of work you'd be doing, you can check us out on GitHub, github.com/CFPB. Or you can see a recent post about our technology team's work on TechCrunch. We have an open source code policy that's pretty exciting. So if you have any questions, please stop by. I'm happy to answer them and direct you to our development team, who says hello. Thanks.
Thanks, Uri. So next up, Energy Information Administration, and then after that, regulations.gov.
Okay, thank you. My name is Mark Elbert. I'm with the Energy Information Administration, and I'm here to talk to you about some stuff that we've been doing with interactive website and APIs. We've actually been wanting to do APIs for about 3 years now. We've had definite interest from our customers. They've been telling us through a variety of means, but a number of things have gotten in the way, budget cuts and priorities. I think we got whacked a few years ago, about 10% of our budget, and the pretty pictures versus the geeky stuff, the pretty pictures tends to win when you try to sell it to your senior staff. Melinda is one of my colleagues over here, and I think we've both been submitting various proposals. And then the other thing is the interface and systems design questions. Exactly what format should we follow, RESTful or not? So in the meantime, while we were sleeping, web browsers got fast, and we can thank Google and Chrome for that. Even Internet Explorer is fast, getting faster now. We have a lot of open source libraries that have bloomed, and it's made highly interactive websites possible. Using jQuery and high charts, fancy tips, Q-tips, those sorts of things. And all these require APIs. So what has happened, we found ourselves creating APIs anyways. In the last 6 months, we've put out 2 APIs for our own usage. I think Census talked about being in the same boat where to make their own applications, they have unpublished APIs. And I think that would be very helpful if we could get them published. It's about 140,000 petroleum natural gas series on one and about 120,000 electricity series on another. And I'm just going to take you to this, give you an idea of what these applications are about. So this is on our beta site. If we found this to be very helpful to get comments from the public on projects before they actually go live. It's been helpful to improve the user interface, even catch, in this case, a funny little bug which only occurred east of Greenwich Mean Time. So somebody in Paris pointed out to us. I mean, there was no way we would have found that out on our own. It's kind of amazing. But what this allows you to do is you can pick any series. There it's calling the API. You can graph whatever you want to graph above. A couple different ways to look at it. And you can, let's see how this mouse works, actually drill down to any of the aggregate numbers to underlying plant level data. Filter in your state, take a look at 3 Mile Island, and actually find out what's being burned in each of the steam turbines over time. That's a lot of data. Like I said, about 120,000 series that we are getting on the call, on the fly. So what do the API calls look like that we've built for ourselves? Well, here's a simple one. It's the standard AJAX post. We put the data parameter, has various information we need to get the information back. We get it in JSON format, and we consume it. So then how do we turn this into a more published API? So we have a couple of questions, and that's really why we're here today, is trying to find this out, is do we use accounts? Do we need to track the usage to prevent accidental denial of service attacks? We're not a very big agency. We're about 300 feds, 300 contractors, and you can imagine the budget. Drudge Report linked to one of our data pages a couple months ago and just about brought down the petroleum series for a couple hours. So we don't have a huge infrastructure to support, very, very heavy hits. So in this case, accounts would be very helpful in tracking that, RESTful or not. As we've developed the APIs for our own use, it doesn't seem like the REST format was most useful for us. But looking around the room, it seems like most people are going that direction. I'm certainly willing to be convinced. It's an interesting conversation. Please talk to me afterwards. JSON or XML. JSON seems to be winning. And lastly, the naming conventions. This is something I'd really like to get together with everybody, is how are we going to name things like keys? You can call it a key, you can call it a access code, a token, whatever else. If we could come up with some common naming conventions so at least we speak the same language, so developers could have an easier time whether they go to NREL API or EIA or Census. Okay, and then one last thing, since this is kind of a developer jam, want to share something that we're also working on called AutoChart, what we're calling AutoChart. And the reason we do this is we don't always have databases behind all of our data. We have a lot of old systems that spit out HTML, whether they're sourced from a Excel table or an Access database, whatever. They get onto the website, and they're kind of boring. So what we want to do is add some graphing to these. And here's an example. And you notice that just popped up. It was using jQuery, so that users can actually visualize some of the data. Oops. And then decide whether they want to print it out, download it, whatever. This runs on just flat HTML tables. It's really easy to use. And once you have the library, whoops, that's the code it takes to invoke it. So we can turn on a lot of our annual energy review, monthly energy review tables that, again, are flat. They are legacy, but they're going to probably be there for a while and make them something a little bit more interesting than they are now. And this will be available on GitHub. And right now you can see some examples at this link. I think the slides will be distributed. And I think that's a quick run through of everything. Again, the URLs and any questions. Okay. Well, thank you very much.
So next up is regulations.gov. Great. And on deck is USA Search. And we're down to our last three. Crazy. Yeah, there's. Here's a little advancer.
My name is Adam McWilliams. I'm with the federal government's e-rulemaking program. And I wanted to thank everybody for coming out today and give a special shout out to the FCC for setting up this great event. It's been a pleasure being here. The goal of our program is to increase the transparency and effectiveness of federal rulemaking through public participation. Among other things, our team runs a site called regulations.gov that most executive branch departments and agencies use to allow users to research and comment on new and proposed rules made by the federal government. The site's been around since 2003 and currently serves 39 agencies. And we're a bit unusual in the fact that we're also funded and governed by those 39 agencies. Today we host over 3 million regulatory documents, including rules, proposed rules, notices, and comments by the general public, industry groups, academia. And in an effort to extend the reach of this data, we, in February, launched our first set of APIs. They provide read access to our data and are designed to allow other sites to repackage our data and to open our data to research organizations and the press. This summer, we also plan to release a commenting API, which agencies and third-party organizations will be able to use to feed comments into our system. And we also think that will make commenting and participation more accessible to the general public, and also improve the reliability of submissions by advocacy organizations who already have developed their own ingenious ways to slide things in through our web form. So I think it'll make everybody's life easier to do it that way. So I'm going to invite the brains behind this effort up here in just a second, but again, I wanted to emphasize that if you're interested in using our data, please reach out to us. Some of the services have already been launched, but we're still fairly early on, and we're very open to adjusting them to meet your needs. So with that, I'll turn it over to Sandeep.
Well, thanks, Adam. So first of all, I'd like to say I think this is an amazing time for Open Gov developer community, and we're just thrilled to be a part of this whole thing. Moving on, as Adam pointed out, we started off, we released our read APIs earlier this year, and it's mostly searching documents open for commenting, otherwise things closed if you're interested in that kind of stats. And then if you want to get more detailed information on publications from all kinds of agencies participating in our program, there's a document, a detail API, there's a docket detail API. All of these APIs support both XML and JSON output format. So whatever's your taste or curry, please go ahead. These APIs do require a key, something we debated over, and when we put this together. But in the end, decided to go this route for now. So we'll keep on watching this and see if that changes. If I can have you focus on that diagram for a second, that's our URL format. The first piece highlighted, decides which API you want to use as keywords for that. The second is, pretty easy, XML or JSON. And then the third and fourth really tell you the filters you can use. And the part not highlighted there is, as I said, you do need an API key. Document search. It's very flexible. It supports the full range of filters available to you from our website. If you've done that before, there's tons of things, sorting, filtering on categories, on agencies, and stuff like that. The other nice thing that we want to do is, if you're on our website, you do a search, you can pick all those individual parameters, bring them over, so you don't have to. When you look at the number of things available to you, it's a little overwhelming, but you can do a search and pick those things, bring them over to an API request. So, another piece is, of course, if you are somebody who's interested in just pure stats, what things have changed over last day or so, we also do the basic flips, which you can get all information or just counts on things. And finally, last but very important, our search API assumes a lot of defaults. So, if your result says 10 million, well, not 10 million, but let's say 200 results, and you only see 20 on a page, it is because the search is assuming a pagination default, and you need to change your parameters to get there. And then second and third is document and docket. As I said before, if you want more detailed information about particular documents, polar bear, rules on stuff like that, you can get all of that. There's links to detailed content files, and then that gives you a holistic view of what we have there. Okay, enough talk, and I'll show you some of this stuff. So I don't know if you can. That first link, please. Okay, so that's your basic search. It says there's about 3.2 million documents we host at the moment. This is just what's available through our public website. There's a few more that agencies are working on currently, and we're processing at the moment. Of course, that's not very helpful to most of you, right? You're interested in some cut of that data. So the second is sort of a common example. What has been posted out in the last 3 days? And you can see that the number is a lot less, 85, I guess, at the moment. Can you go back, please? Okay, so that's a quick sample of what we offer. Actually, just for a second, let me just this. Like I was saying, it's fairly easy to get the JSON output instead of. Okay, well, i.e. not. Yeah, super friendly IE. But anyways, so you get the gist that it supports all of those, and any queries you do, you can get data in either formats. Can you go back to the slide, please? Okay. You can request an API key through our help desk, through our standard contact us form. That's just the setup we have today. It's fairly efficient. We're looking for those requests, so please email us. More comprehensive information is available on our website. There's a developers link in our main menu, and I've also put that PDF link up here. Can you just open that? We'll just glance through it quickly. Of course. Is there a PDF reader on this machine? Can I see a nod? There is? Okay. Never mind. Okay. So this is what we have so far. We are currently working on the Comment API. Like Adam mentioned, this is coming out later this summer. And we are very excited about this. This is we've received requests. We are working with other agencies and would like to see more and more activity on this front. And of course, we we want to enhance what we have out there. We've received some requests of putting more information, making it more developer friendly as well. And then, finally, right now it's just a document. It is a pretty comprehensive document, but we'd like to expand our /developer domain as well. Start doing more collaborative, more interactive work with all of you and the bigger developer community out there. And with that, I'd like to say thanks. As I said before, very excited. A lot of the bigger agencies are doing some great work, and we'd like to learn and follow. So our contact information is up there, and we'll also be talking to you guys. Thank you.
I'm going to hit you with one question. Yeah, the API for commenting.
Yes.
Right now it has, at least EPA as a agency switch. Have you built any other agencies in? If so, who? How many? Because that looks like a really cool.
The commenting API?
Yeah.
Well, it's the API itself is not going to be specific to an agency. This is, like our website is. It's fairly dynamic. It's a two-step process. You request the form and you figure out, for each agency, you get their agency's customized form as a XML output, right?
And who do you have so far in the bucket there? Just name a couple.
When it's released, it'll work with all of the agencies, all 39 departments and agencies. We're working with one specific agency right now to develop a widget that's going to work with their agency. Once that's working, we're going to share it with everybody else too. So people, what would happen once that's available is instead of people having to come to our web form to submit a comment on a given rule, they could do it from the agency's website where people naturally go anyway to find that information.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. Next up is USA Search, and then the last one, data.gov.
All right, hello. My name is Greg Gershman. I'm a contractor. I work on the USA Search team at GSA. I'm going to tell you a little bit about our Search Data API. It's a little bit different than I think a lot of the APIs and the services we've heard about so far in that it's really actually, it's government content. It's all the content that all you guys publish out. We have search indices of every government website. Our APIs are for the government sites to implement a search feature on their websites. They can implement plain search feature. They could do, use the features of our API to create little widgets or do anything that they really want to do with the data. It's freely available. So just to kind of give you, this is all the information from our Search Data API page. To see all this, you basically just have to go to search.usa.gov and create an account, and you will then you'll get an API key, and you'll be given access to all the data about our API and how to get access to it. But basically, we have JSON or XML, and we have a section, kind of a summary thing for each search. You provide a query, a couple other parameters, which we'll go over in a bit. And you can basically just use our web interface to build your search engine. A lot of sites will use what we call the affiliate program to create search for their own site. It's hosted on our site, and there's ways to link it into your site. But you can also use the API to just create a completely customized look and feel for the results. Like I said, do a widget or something like that. And we'll return that data back to you in XML or JSON. We do all sorts of things like stemming and all this fancy, like Google's Bing-like search types of stuff. Just a little detail on the API. This is the endpoint that you'd hit, search.usa.gov/API/search. You'll get back JSON or XML. It's an HTTP GET request, and there's no authentication required. We do require an API key just for the sake of tracking and statistics. Here's some of the parameters. You give us your affiliate name, which is when you create your account, you'll see you can actually create multiple affiliates, and that's where you specify which domains you want to search, and you can put things in there such as boosted content. You can specify certain pages or URLs to get boosted to the top of the results for certain queries. We'll give you an API key. You can put that in that parameter. You can pick JSON or XML. Give us what keywords you want to query for, the search terms, the page, so you can paginate through results, and we have query highlighting so that you can make results, make the keywords matching your search terms highlighted. That's on by default. Just some examples of some URLs. I just use an example, agency.gov. The first one would be a search for fire with response in JSON format. The second one would be page 3 with query highlighting turned off and response in XML. It's really, really easy to use. Some examples of sites that are using our search, nps.gov. There's about 575 government, federal, state, and local websites that use search.usa.gov. They're our affiliate program, but we have just a few that are using the API to provide custom results. NPS.gov is one. USACE, the Army Corps of Engineer, they use our API, and they also use our on-demand indexing feature, which will be rolling out. We're testing it with them, but basically we index all their content on demand instantly as they publish it. That'll soon be available to everybody. And then Washington State's Department of Transportation. This is just a picture of what their search results page looks like. You can kind of get a feeling for what is coming from our API. And what they're pulling in from other sources, so they can kind of mix and match things and create, kind of their own customized search results page. So there's some benefits of this, beyond just using our affiliate program. We have really good customization, customizing your CSS and your styles if you use the regular affiliate program. But if you use the API, you really can just do whatever you want with it. You just get the data and present it however you want. It's hosted on your site. You can access it and integrate it into your site however you want. You get all sorts of analytics. We'll tell you what your most popular queries are. There's other query analytics stuff there, and it's free, which is also very good. Coming soon, all the features that we have in the regular affiliate program, such as image search, and we do news feed, RSS feed, social media types of indexing, that'll all be available as part of the API. We're just rolling that stuff in bit by bit. But that'll soon be available, so you'll be able to get access to all of that information through the API soon. Best way to get started is to go to search.usa.gov, log in and create an account, and just play around with it. It's free. It doesn't do anything to your site. You can delete it if it's if you don't like it. You can play around with it, and it's up to you if you want to use it or not. So any information, you can go to usasearch.howto.gov, and we have some more information there about the different features that we have. And contact information is on our About Us page. And usasearch.howto.gov is our blog. We publish articles there frequently on search and how to use the affiliate program. That's it. Any questions? All right. Thank you very much.
All right, last up is data.gov from GSA, and we're just loading the presentation. And then after Chris goes, I'll do a short wrap-up, and then there's a time for announcements, and we can stick around for discussion, and I'm happy to stick around for as long as people want.
Hi, my name is Chris Muselek. I work for data.gov. I'm the chief software architect. Before we start, and while Antoine is getting everything up and running, I just want to say I'm very impressed. I'm blown away by the number of agencies that already have APIs set up. They have sort of developer communities coming online and doing a lot of great work. So So in many ways, my presentation is sort of a summary of all the great work you guys are doing. So I don't need to go and talk about data.gov, but I would like to ask, how many of you consider yourselves developers? Okay, wow, we got a good percentage here. How many have used data.gov to search or discover for something new, some kind of data set that you wanted to use for? Okay, so not very many. Interesting. Okay. We have a lot of work to do on that front. I just wanted to quickly point out that right now data.gov has about 440,000 data sets online. Most of them, 99%, are actually geospatial in nature, and at about 185 different agencies. So really all of you all contribute to be able to produce data.gov. All of this data really belongs to the original agencies and also to the public, right? But I wanted to talk about a couple things that we're doing at data.gov. The first thing is an initiative called the Open Government Platform. Andrew here, my colleague in arms, I can't use brother in arms because I think that was already taken, is an initiative that I'd like to mention here because we're trying to promote it, and it's something different. It's a bilateral partnership with the government of India to produce an open source version of data.gov's software stack. And we've been working with the government of India's National Informatics Center. We're currently helping them to stand up their own data.gov.in portal. And we have essentially a set of a site set up, opengovtplatform.org, that you can check out, that kind of that just provides some background information, some documentation, how to get involved, and ultimately how we'd love to get you to participate in this. This is in some ways very distinct because we want you as developers to help to contribute to our code base, the DataGov catalog that we use on data.gov. And we want to take your code commits. We want to leverage all of the great ideas that you guys have to make our catalog and really other governments and other agencies' catalog better. So we're very excited about it. What do we mean exactly by sort of open government collaboration and participation? I really liked Steve's sort of word that he used, innovate with less. That's what we're trying to do. We essentially mean public commits, public bug tracking, public mailing lists, and public milestones, so that we can work iteratively with all of you all to contribute to this data catalog. So if you have an itch to scratch, please get involved. Right now we are in an invitational only until next month, so you need to let us know that you're interested and we can give you access to the source code. It will be made public. It's on GitHub. We're using that as a way to manage our source commits. We're also using Pivotal Tracker to kind of manage sort of a Scrum-like, Agile-like project methodology. And if you have an itch to scratch on whether it's search, you want to improve search, or you want to sort of automate the back end, add a data dictionary, things that just really frustrate you as developers in trying to find and search for data, I highly encourage you all to take a look at it. And feel free to reach out to me afterwards. Either myself or Andrew will be happy to talk about it. Okay. Another thing I think someone mentioned before that we're also working on is just relaunching our developer community. We have a developer community on data.gov, but we are completely revamping it. And please check back soon. That's the URL that you can look at today, but there's going to be a lot of other things being added soon. Of course, data.gov source code will be out there. Other helpful tools such as useful screen scrapers we want to add. Listing of agencies as developer sites. I mean, there's so many that are out here, and I think just having a sort of a place where those can be collected in one place is useful. Also, sort of a calendar of challenges that are going on, update ones in the future as well as ones in the past, and then also just sort of a list of APIs and documentation. We really understand the need for having good documentation. That's one of the feedback that we've received from developers, is to have good documentation, and so we're working to make that better. Another item that data.gov that is working on that I'm really excited about is an initiative called API Key Management. And Steve Van Rokel asked us to kind of look at this and standing up a service at data.gov for the entire federal government. And we've actually been talking with many of you all. In fact, the FCC, NREL, Department of Labor, as well as Socrata have kind of collected in a couple of real short meetings to help to define really what we could do with API key management, and we're sort of what the scope of that is. At this point, it's still an ongoing process before we kind of roll out a service eventually that provides a key for you as a developer, a single key that you can use across the entire federal government's set of APIs. So we want to make it easier for you to be able to consume sort of data services that are available across the federal government. And there's some of the ideas on the table that have come out of this so far has been documentation and guidance on how to consume APIs, providing templates and reference standards for that. Also sort of providing potentially an API key authorization platform that either provides a central proxy that was similar to what NREL was talking about, or a key validation sort of service that agencies can use to validate a key. If they want to take care of their own authentication, they can validate the key with us. We hold on to the keys, but they can of course take care of that authentication. And also providing basic application statistics as a service to agencies who want to understand more about which applications are using my APIs, which is something that is possible without sort of an API key, as you all know, but it makes it a little bit easier and a little bit more targeted when you have a key that states this particular application, which was registered, is using this particular service. The other thing, I kind of put these out of order, that I wanted to talk about was in general sort of improving data.gov and what are some of the things that we're thinking about. My kind of elevator pitch is really three things in my role, and one that is really important to me is improving search and discovery. There are several problems I think we can say that we want to improve upon in data.gov. One of them I kind of define as the fragmented search problem. So when you search, the quintessential example being tiger, you get back not one result, but you get back 331,000. And so as far as trying to find data sets that you might be interested in and reusing, we need to be able to solve that problem. There's a lot of other sort of data sets like that. So making search better is one thing that I'm really focused on. Additionally, adding sort of a better understanding of the data sets by providing data dictionaries, using vocab.data.gov to do that, that we're working on. The second thing is sort of automating the back end. I mean, a lot of you all are here from different agencies. I'm sure at some point or another you've worked with data.gov and you've used the metadata template in DMS or potentially on geo.data.gov getting data. We want to make it as easy as possible to get data online. So that means providing APIs that allow you to upload data, metadata records so that they can be searched, and providing sort of vocabularies around different metadata fields that are sort of standardized to help with search. But sort of making that process easier for you all is a second end. And the third thing is just listening to our users. So we spent a lot of time reaching out to different users, asking them, what are the things that you as developers, you as a journalist, what are those types of things that you need, and listening to what they have to say. So those are just some of the things that, as a high level, what we're working on, and I'm happy to take any questions. Sure, go ahead.
Can you talk a little bit more about that central proxy for APIs?
Sure. Yeah. So I think at this point it's still a work in progress. We haven't defined specifically what that would be, but I think if we had to sort of say today what it would be, it would look similar to the way NREL has sort of a central proxy that we would take care of authentication for an agency, and you would register with us, and in return, we'd provide statistics and we'd take care of the key management for you.
The actual request be handled by the bigger agencies.
Those services would still exist. We would sort of be just the proxy through which then developer could access. So they would have one place to go to rather than multiple different places.
I have two questions.
Sure.
One is kind of abstract. In the collaboration with the government of India, is the government of the UK with their OpenGov platform involved in that at all, or have you reached out with them? Have they talked to you guys?
We have reached out with them quite a bit, specifically the CCAN folks, but I've talked to a couple of folks at DataGov UK. They're clearly in the forefront of data catalogs, and we're working together. We work more closely with the government of India at this point with the partnership that we have, but
Right.
we are talking back and forth about how we can share ideas to both make our catalogs more interoperable, but just different problems that we both have come across that are different depending on where we sit. So we are working with them.
Okay. Are there any specific recommendations or requests that you would have for individual agencies here to participate with the open, the thing that you're doing with India? I mean, are they looking at, like, in my case, the statistical office in India, are they doing something that maybe we should know about for census data that goes into data.gov?
We haven't gotten that far into specific agencies within India, but we would love to see other agencies participate as well. This sort of openness and participation in open source it extends to the agencies as well. They may have a need for a data catalog to just categorize their assets, and they may find what we're working on very useful to them. I mean, in many ways, we're working on similar types of things. So I highly encourage any agencies as well. It's not just public, but we are kind of focusing at this point on sort of public users, I think, to get the word out.
Hi, Chris. Dave Smith with EPA. At EPA, we've expanded our geodata catalog to handle non-geospatial data sets. We're using the open source GeoPortal extension.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's got an interesting possibility since there's already an existing federation model for the geodata, in terms of automating your backend, is that going to be something that plays into it, kind of that same model of federation and having agencies follow a similar path?
Federation is definitely on the geospatial side of things, has really helped out by in sort of reducing those barriers and automating the back end. We just harvest everything. I think we need to even improve some more. Some of the work at the Data.gov UK, they're working to make harvesting even more flexible and more powerful by using functions on either end of the harvesting scheme to sort of specify a specific filter or topic area that you want to harvest. And things like that. So I think there's a lot of work we need to do, but I think if we want to make things just more sustainable in the future, that we need to move to a federated architecture with regards to the raw data catalog. So we're working on that, but there's a lot of complexities around how we kind of get everything to work together, and so that's I don't have a time frame for when we're going to actually get that. We're working as fast as we can.
Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, I thought I'd wrap up with a couple of very just quick points, and then again, I really encourage everyone to stay as long as possible. I'm going to stay, hang out, and after my points, there's opportunity for announcements. So I know there's at least one. So if you have other stuff going on, you're welcome to come up. So a couple of logistic announcements. All the PowerPoints we're going to make available on our site somewhere. I think we'll send around where that is. Is it where? /events. This is going to be the PowerPoint, the transcripts, the closed caption transcript, and the live video. So that'll all be on /events. The video from the chairman's introduction is already out on our YouTube site. I heard 4 distinct things. I'm sure there's a whole bunch more, but one, actually this isn't the first, this is the precursor. I'm really impressed with what everyone is doing. So it's neat to have an event like this just to share again, to see what other people are doing, and the level of expertise and the level of input that we're seeing across the board on .govs was what most impressed me. The four sort of things that I kind of heard lots of is people are already publishing high asset data. So those are being, in their own departments, they're getting high volume of use. I thought that was really cool. Number two, I saw a lot of REST, XML, JSON. That seems to be sort of what a lot of people are doing. I heard a lot of discussion about API management. There's some flavors in there, and I think the work that Data.gov team has been asked to do in that regard. And the common theme throughout that I heard was lowering the barrier to use. So, I mean, those were the four general things that I heard a lot of. Again, I really appreciate everyone's input on that. The team and I were just sort of conversing in the back. My guess is that we'll think a lot about next steps in the next week or two. I won't go on the record yet, but I think we'll want to do this again and again and again, and we're happy to help host. So if people thought this was useful, we'll probably do some more of that. And then announcements. So I know there's at least one. You want to come up? And if you have others, please come on up.
Can we pull up something real fast?
I'm just being fat-fingered.
So the one thing I wanted to highlight real fast was something which we only added a couple months ago, but hopefully all of you will be getting a call to action to as well. So we did some real deep Googling with site:/.gov specificity for just the word API, the word developer, /API/developer, etc. And as best as we can find, we've only found about 23 or so really /developer or equivalent, real hubs. And I think that's one of the underlying aspects that I take away from a day like today is we're all at different parts, but having that hub going forward is I think a real mainstay because it gives people a place to go back to and an expectation for future growth. And so if you go on there and look now, I know Labor and a couple others have already said they were going to work on this, but I'd really recommend that you take a look at these and you add these links to your hub as well. Even if actually you haven't created a hub yet, just put it up, link to the RSS feed you have, whatever you have, but then having these links there and let us know and we'll add yours in and when you roll it out, et cetera, et cetera. We're actually prototyping right now just an uber lightweight API for this. So at some point in the next month or so, you should be able to look at the bottom of this list and actually just get a little API that you can insert on the page. But I think there's a real opportunity at this kind of cross-section for us to get together every 6 months, but also for us to be cross-linking like hell. So I definitely beg your help on that.
Excellent. Thanks, Greg. Any question?
Now, if I could just make a general recommendation to...
You want to wait for them? Can you wait for the mic? Thanks.
And I think a good general recommendation is if people could use the same as they're creating their developer pages, I would recommend using the /developer for the pages. Yep. So everybody be consistent on that.
Nomenclature could be /developer.
Right. That's right.
That's definitely what we've adopted.
And I think that will be coming out that way.
Well, and I'm with her, but also for those who've already established something, just add the redirect for /developer.
Any other general announcements? Excellent. Well, I think that concludes our live stream for today. Thank you guys so much for coming. And again, there's food, and I'm going to hang out for conversation. I hope you all do too. So really appreciate everyone coming today. Thank you.